On. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everybody, especially our two new commissioners who I know will introduce themselves later. But we're ready to start the regular Parks and Community Services Commission meeting, February 9th, 2023. The time is 6:31. And Commissioner Plummer, I'd like to invite you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Well, thank you.
Okay, let's all stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Lozano, can we please have our roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Plummer?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia Arreola?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Griggs?
Here.
Commissioner Mammerl?
Here.
And Commissioner Margolotti?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. No, there are no folks in chamber today. Ms. Lozano, do we have any public comment via Zoom or email?
We did receive one written public comment prior to the meeting from Karina Cervente. That public comment will be made part of the meeting minutes, and we currently have nobody in the Zoom audience wanting to make a comment.
Thank you very much. Okay. If all our commissioners have been able to check out the agenda, are there any changes to the agenda at this time? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. First item and only item, approve the meeting minutes for the December 8th, 2022 PCS meeting. So the action minutes are attached to the agenda. If everyone needs a chance to review them.
One note, I was present.
Hmm.
I just came about 20 minutes late to the
Got it.
meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Margolotti. We'll make the edit.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Any further changes or revisions? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes for December 8th, 2022?
I motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 8th, 2022.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, just say aye, or raise your hand. Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, no opposition. So the motion carries. Okay. Next item is our business items. The first item on business is election of chair and vice chair for 2023. Actually, and forgive me, maybe this should have been an agenda change. I think it would be good, because we do have our new commissioners, to welcome them and have them introduce themselves to us, and especially to our any residents Zooming and viewing this. So, well, commissioners, who would like to introduce themselves first?
I'll start. Sorry, didn't mean to jump out here, but so my name is David Garcia. I've lived in the community since 2003. I was born and raised here in American Canyon, and currently works for the city, and now I'm happy to serve the Parks Commission. And thank you for having me here. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, David. My name is Charles Plummer. I have been a resident of American Canyon since 2015. I have 2 kids in school, one in high school, freshman, and one a 6th grader at the middle school here. Actively love the outdoors, and one of the reasons we stayed in American Canyon was because of the Parks and Recs program. So I'm very honored and happy to be serving as commission now with the Parks and Recs department.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, big welcome to our new commissioners. Just on a personal note, I saw the interviews, and I'm, very, very happy that the city council, in their wisdom, chose you both to join us here on the Parks and Community Services Commission. So, Commissioner Garcia Arreola, also, folks, correct me if I'm wrong, but you may be the first American Canyon High School graduate who has been appointed post-graduation on a city commission. Is that probably correct?
I think your memory is better than mine.
Oh, definitely on PCS.
And I think you have more historical and knowledge about it than I do at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to argue with you.
The only caveat would be is if Planning Commission has a commissioner who's also a relatively recent grad of American Canyon High School.
I don't think that they do. I think, no, I don't think that was the case. We still have we're doing the recruitments next for
Honorary commissioner?
OSATs, and that's going to be on February 15th. And there's quite a few applicants in that pool as well. So it'll be very interesting to see who council chooses and decides for that commission.
Mm-hmm. So far, we're number 1 in terms of.
So far.
Okay.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
Okay. First order of business, election of the chair and vice chair for 2023.
So Liz
Rakita,
is gonna
yeah.
Liz is gonna lead us on that conversation. So I'm gonna let her take over.
Thank you. So annually, on a calendar year basis, we do elect 1 chair or vice chair to serve for the calendar year. That is from January to December. The primary role of the chair is to meet with the director occasionally and also lead the meetings. In the chair's absence, the vice chair will step in and lead the meetings accordingly. In the past, PCS has done a rotation, but it is definitely, you can nominate yourself or someone else can nominate you on your behalf. And we will go ahead and make a motion to solidify the chair and vice chair for 2023.
Thank you very much,
Up
Ms.
for the
Lozano.
discussion.
So, the process of, as Ms. Lozano said, there was a rotating basis for the chair, but with Commissioner Einberger and Commissioner Cervente no longer on the commission, that rotation is out of whack. So at this point, if there are nominations for chair and vice chair, the floor is open. And be mindful that you can nominate yourself, it's completely fine, or nominate a fellow commissioner.
Can I jump in? I think that if we were going to continue, it would have been Commissioner Cervente as chair and Commissioner Griggs as vice chair, moving into the next round. So if Commissioner Griggs felt comfortable in skipping the vice chair and going straight to chair, I'd like to make a motion that Commissioner Griggs would be chair for the current 2023 year.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? And after the second, we can open it up for discussion. I'll second. Okay. Commissioner Griggs, any comments or any, yes, it's open for discussion.
I think I'm comfortable skipping over vice chair. Hopefully I have been to enough meetings that I can figure this out. I have you at my right hand here, so. And then I think that Kathy would have been next, and it's fine with me if we just continue in rotation. So nominate Commissioner Margolotti for vice chair.
Do you have to finish the second and vote for that one before you making another motion, or we just keep continuing on a roll? I have
Yes.
no idea.
Well, it could be, the first motion could be amended. We'll just,
Chair, we could,
Let's-
excuse me, Commissioner Mammerl, we could do one motion nominating Commissioner Griggs as the chair and Commissioner Margolotti as the vice chair.
okay. Amended motion is on the floor. Do we didn't have a second on the amendment. Okay, do we have a second on the amendment, on the amended motion?
Yes. Second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, seeing no opposition. Commissioner Griggs is now Chair Griggs, and Commissioner Margolotti is now Vice Chair Margolotti. And after the election, you immediately take over. Yes. Good old Robert's Rules of Order. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Mammerl. I guess we are off to the races. Okay, so that being done, the next item on our business calendar is Parks and Recreation Department Service Fee Study. Recommendation, review and discuss the Parks and Recreation Department's cost recovery pyramid model, services categories, market rate service fees, fee comparison, and department master fee schedule. I'll turn it over to Director Akita.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to just refresh everybody where we were at for the last two meetings, since we do have two new commissioners on our team. As you last remember, we spent quite a lot of time discussing and updating our service categories, which was attachment A of part of the staff report. And we also created a cost recovery pyramid model, which was attachment 2, that outlined the cost recovery percentages for those services that are provided through our department. And since we have two new members on our team, I would like to take this opportunity to see if there is any comments or questions before we move forward in our discussion this evening. I know I gave you both homework, so I hope that you, it seems like you're well prepared. No questions? Okay, we're going to dive right in. So as we continue this journey of moving forward and talking about our fee study, tonight in front of you, you have 3 different types of spreadsheets. And this is really just to try to get to a point where we can create a master fee schedule and make a recommendation to City Council in March, so we can actually have a fee schedule that's around the services that we provide to this community. So number 1, we're going to talk about the allocations per program, which is attachment 3. Number 2, we're going to talk about the fee comparison. And number 3, we're going to talk about the proposed master fee schedule as attachment 5. So if we could go ahead and turn to the allocations per program spreadsheet. This was a pretty complex process. We had a ton of information and data that was completed by the consultant. And although it was great data, it really wasn't relevant at the time because it was done a couple of years ago. So what you see in front of you is our attempt to look at each of our services that we provide to this community. Column 1 is going to be the direct staff costs that are associated with each service that we provide. That is the exact staff that is on site supporting that program, or, you know, they're in general supporting that program. Then we have our admin costs, and how I was able to allocate that was take our admin budget for our department, and I allocated it across the 6 different divisions and tried to be as equitable as possible. It is a rough number. Unfortunately, I can't get down to the penny or the dollar because, again, it is an estimate. I took the overall budget, divided it by 8,176 hours, which is for the year, and then I allocated that based off of per hour. There's typically about 3 programs that run per hour, and that's how I got that fee, which is the $3.43 per program. Yes, sir.
Question, when you're doing the allocation on the budget for admin cost, are you prorating that allocation based on demand for programs? No, you're just doing a flat,
It's just a flat fee.
straight line fee across, okay, just
Yes.
want to clarify that, thank you.
Yes, because our admin, so we do have direct admin that support our entire department. It's, for instance, Liz, who is she's our clerk, but she's also supports the department as a whole. She's responsible for our registration software, our day-to-day operations of our programming with our programs in Civic Rec. There is a lot that's behind the scenes that we do with our programs, and really identifying that each program benefits from that service and making sure that it's allocated equally across all the divisions.
Just a follow-up question on that, and this is more just for my own edification, and this might be a question for Liz. The demand for admin for programs, I have to imagine one is more demanding than another, right? So in the future, is there a possibility to look at the prorated amount of time spent per programming effort? Because, again, if you're spending more time on, let's say, swim programs, which might be the largest contributor to admin time, then the proration amount might be a little bit higher, and we have to look at the cost. So not that we have to do that now, but in the future might be something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think with all of our programs, it ebbs and flows with the seasons, and just based off, you know, during the fall, we're really heavy with basketball, but during the summer, we're really heavy with aquatics. There is a lot of ebbing and flowing. To get down to the dollar and really look at the percentage for programs, we can absolutely look at that in the future. But for this, where we're at today, this was the best way that I felt that we could, you know, do it equitably across the entire department, and try to come up with a fee for those programs and services, because at some point, admin does touch it. And then you're going to have your division costs. So your division costs are going to be your specific department costs, or your division costs. So we have our, off to the left-hand side, you're going to see that gray little box. You have your admin cost per program, your aquatics cost per program, your enrichment, camps, open space, so on and so forth. Again, same concept, taking those budgets, allocating it per division based off the amount of programs that are ran, and again, it's a rough estimate. Then you have your miscellaneous costs, and this is direct costs. So if you look off to that column, you're going to see summer camp, that $10 per participant. That covers the in-house field trips or specific programming supplies that is directly tied to that program. Moving down into rentals for insurance, that is the exact fee that we pay the insurance company for that insurance certificate. And then lastly, on the when we move down through this, sorry, I want to make sure the public is following along. When you look on field rentals, that's staff time to set up the fields, field prep. There is time that goes into field prep. And then same with court rentals. There's time in preparing the courts, blowing the courts, making sure they're playable. And then with our last, there is also the picnic reservations. You're going to see the on-staff, on-call park staff that are directly tied to our weekends for our picnic reservations. So taking all those fees and adding it up, you're going to get your total per cost per hour rate. Mind you, our facility rentals are a per hour rate, and then our programs are per participant rate. So that's why you're going to see that distinguishing they're going to be identified that way. Then, based off of where we stuck those programs in the service category cost recovery pyramid model, that's the number that's telling you exactly where they fall. So you'll see like a 4 or a 5, a 2, that's where it falls on the cost recovery pyramid model. Then we took it and we multiply it by the max cost recovery to get the market rate. The market rate would be the max amount that we would charge to offset the total cost to run and operate that program or that service. With that explanation, I am looking for your comments, your feedback, any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Akita. Are there any commissioner questions at this time?
I have a question. Is there a target recovery rate? I know I was watching back through some of the meetings from before, just trying to understand it again. Is the target recovery rate 100% and just to kind of come even, or is there a margin that the city or the Parks Department is looking to achieve?
So we have not been directed by City Council to have a certain cost recovery rate for our department. What I have researched in the past by looking at past City Council meetings is that they want to maintain the same subsidy that we have. Right now, if we were to hit every expense and every budget revenue projection, our cost recovery rate would be 30%. They don't want to see that increase. They don't want to see that decrease. They didn't really set that for us. So that's really going to be kind of the conversation that we're going to have with council, is really kind of understand what is going to be the department cost recovery rate overall. But however, we have set per program cost recovery rates of what we want each program to be. And it does vary, like category 1, 0 to 10%, category 2, 25 to 50, and so on and so forth. And it really is, it's programs are put in those buckets based off of, community versus individual. And that's really where we spend a lot of our time to really understand what is the cost recovery rate that we want to have for individual programs. And hopefully that would better improve our cost recovery as a department, because right now we just don't have anything. And right now we really didn't really know how much our programs were costing. And so even just doing this work puts us in a better position today than we were yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I think the work that's been done here, the transparency of the numbers really helps to digest the costs that are necessary in order to fulfill these programs or future programs should they come down the pipeline. And then just to summarize what you just said there, so if I understood it correctly, the blended target is about 30% across all programming things, although cost recovery based on bucket would be higher or lower depending on. So I just wanted to simplify and clarify it. That sounds correct to you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
when we go through this process, we're going to realize that some programs are they're going to generate revenue, but the department's not generating revenue, if that makes sense. We're generating revenue in this bucket to help subsidize this bucket over here. And you're going to see that a lot with the types of programs and services that we provide, like senior services. I like to use that as an example because we know overall industry-wide that senior services in general, they tend to be on a fixed income. We know that senior services generally is a subsidized program. But we know with our rentals, that's not a subsidized program. That's an individual benefit that helps offset other programs that we know that need to be subsidized. So that's where just having this conversation and understanding that balance, because, when we built this budget this year, it was with the mindset of, we're not here to make money. We're here to just be physically responsible and put us in a position to where we can explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and hopefully make that dollar stretch in areas that we want to see it.
So a clarification question. I'm looking at the master fee schedule.
We're not there yet, Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
But
Okay.
you are more than happy to ask your question.
Yeah. I will hold the question and ask that at that point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question for clarification? So when I'm looking at this and understanding the total per program per hour rate, and then you have the max cost recovery. Is that going back to the pyramids or the tiers? So that on this first one, you're looking at, if swim lessons falls into tier 4, there's a range of 50 to 100%. Is that considered, is that percentage that's on that, the max cost recovery, is that what that means on there?
Correct, yeah,
So
we're
then you're looking, so that particular rate is if you were looking at recovering 100% of the costs.
Right,
Not
we're trying-
necessarily the proposal of what would be charged.
Correct. It's
Okay.
the market rate of what we could charge for that service at the max cost recovery rate that we have identified.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions at this time? Seeing none?
All right, we're going to move on to attachment number 4, which is going to be our service fee comparison. Let me just pull this up for the public really quick. Okay, so now that we've really identified the market rate, what we wanted to do was take all of our services and look at what we're currently charging, which is going to be column number 1, where you have your fees that are outlined in red. And then you're going to, oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. Column number 1 is your program cost per program per hour rate in red. Column number 2 is the current fee that we're currently charging for that service. And then column number 3 is going to be the market rate. So that's that rate that we already identified in the last conversation. Then what we did is we took our fees and the market rate and what we should be charging, and we compared it over across the various organizations throughout the Bay Area. You're going to notice that we surveyed Napa, the city of Benicia, GVRD, which is a special district, the city of Fairfield, the city of Vacaville, the city of Hercules, the city of Pinole, the city of Walnut Creek, the city of Pleasant Hill Parks and Rec District, Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, and the city of Oakland. And the reason why we chose so many is because not everybody does the same things that we do, and we wanted to at least get a sense of what other people are charging, because as you're looking at the market fee rate, you're going to notice that some are highlighted in yellow and some are highlighted in red. The ones that are highlighted in red, when you're comparing it across the industry standard of what other agencies are charging, this could be an area of concern. And this is where we want to get into that conversation of what is an affordable fee? What is an affordable rate for our residents, for our non-residents, for our nonprofit organizations? And I'm going to just take it. If you go down and you look at private swim lessons, our direct cost per participant is $172.33. We're charging $119. If we were to go with our market rate, it would be $258.50. However, when we look at the industry standard of what other agencies are charging, that's not really putting us in the mindset of us having a competitive rate. Or an affordable rate for our residents. Same with lap swim, drop-in. Our market rate is $14.31 to swim. That's one swim. But when you look at the industry, it ranges between $3.75 all the way up to $7. And so on and so forth. So I wanted to just really highlight that and kind of start this conversation of like, yes, we have our max cost recovery rate, which is our market rate, but now we need to get into the discussion of what's an affordable rate for this community. What is an affordable rate for our nonprofits? What is a competitive rate so we're not outpricing ourselves and having our residents leave and going to Benicia or going to Fairfield or going to these other agencies because we're outpricing our services? This may look nice on the surface, but when you actually start analyzing and looking at other things, we have some issues with this that we want to discuss this evening. So, if we're okay with, is there any questions about the comparison sheet?
So, I know I might be skipping ahead, so tell me if I am. The last column, the differences and increases, is all the red shows us as showing a deficit, and where we're at, is that the delta And what the range is that what that is? Or what
No,
is that
it's
number?
actually the increase. So if we were to go with this the market rate, that is your increase of what you would be asking your residents to be paying for.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
column. Thank you. Oh, and just one point of note. I know it's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk
and
about-
I do want to point out as well. So we all at the very last it's not a column. It's a. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain problem right now.
It's a row.
Thank you. A row. Thank you, Chair. It's a lot of information up here. So our independent contracted instructors, those are services that we contract out with instructors. And so when we talk about those, you're going to notice a range between $50 and $350 of what we're going to want to retain per participant. Because our direct cost per participant is about $14.51. This range would be a recommendation that I would make to maintain that, because our fees vary, and it varies based off of the instructor that's teaching the class. We do work with them, we do negotiate with them, we talk about what our costs are and what we're bringing to the table, and then the instructors have their costs that they're bringing to the table. So again, we want to just keep that fluid and open. And it really does come down to the type of program and the service that they're providing, and having that fluidity to be able to do that is really important for this department, and not putting us in a box, because again, each instructor is different and each class requires different types of support from the city. And then I do want to point out our insurance. That too, I'm going to propose that we keep as a direct cost. It's more of like a pass-through cost. So you're going to notice our liability insurance it costs the city $112. We want to turn around and just charge $112. Just have it be a pass-through cost. With our facility rentals, we are now requiring our renters to have insurance, because they are insuring their individual party, and that, in our opinion, should not be covered by the city. And this actually protects the city before, if something does happen, they have insurance first, and then we go down that path of we have the attorneys work it out. But having that insurance is really important, and we feel that the best way of doing business is just have it be a pass-through, since we're requiring them to have it. Those are my only other comments at this time on this sheet.
I would be interested to see the difference in the increase in percentages versus dollars. It would help my brain.
Do you mind explaining that to me?
So on the fee comparison spreadsheet, where it says difference increase in the final column to the right, it's in dollars. It would be helpful to me if it said a percentage increase. So say 120% or 25%. Because I think going up by a certain percentage is more equitable, and the community responds better to that than just picking random dollar amounts to go up by.
Understood. And I think that that is something that we're going to talk about when we talk about our master fee schedule. This was more of just showing you, if we were to go from our current rate of what we're charging now to the market rate, that's what you're going to see as an increase in money. But when we talk about cost recovery rate as an affordable rate for the master fee schedule, that is going to be where we are going to want to look at individual programs and really understand, does it make sense to be 100% for that program, or should it be on the lower end of that tier? But yes, thank you for that comment.
Yeah, sorry, not the cost recovery fee that we're talking about and the tiers, but how much the proposed cost of the program is going up in percentages to the community versus dollars.
Yes, understood.
I had a question. So looking at the various cities, like we have an app of Anisha, GVRD, Fairfield, did we also consider like the average income of households for these different cities in comparison to what the fees that they're charging? Because I'm noticing that we have a lot of missing data, and there is a huge increase in, for example, like the community garden. There's we have only 2 responses for $50 and $30, and I'm just kind of curious to look at the average income of these different cities, also in comparison to increasing these fees. Like, I want to know, like, making sure that our city, our residents could even afford such a hike in these fees as well. And I think that's something that would be nice to look into as well.
Yeah, that actually was not done. This was just more of to show what other places are charging. And again, for me to fully understand what a city is charging, I would have to fully understand their budget and where their fees are being allocated and associated with. And that's a lot of work. And that's a lot of data that I'd have to go through. And that would be taking each individual program and understanding their staffing, their overhead, their direct costs, their indirect costs, any additional allocations that need to be considered. Quite frankly, I don't know if I'm able to do that. Instead, I was taking it as a whole of knowing these organizations, because I work directly with them, as being somebody who's works in the Bay Area and has worked at many of these organizations, and kind of understanding the how their fees are structured, or and even their population. Like Hercules is very comparable to us. They're about 25,000 people. Pinole, I believe, is very similar. I worked at LARPD. I know their programs inside and out. Walnut Creek is a very high density metropolitan city. I understood. It's just more of just kind of understanding Parks and Recreation in general, in most organizations, are not 100% cost recovery. There is some subsidy unless they have some major funding outside source that is coming in. For us to just look at it from what it is, for a swim lesson, for an 25-minute class swim lesson that is running in Benicia, GVRD, Fairfield, Vacaville, Hercules, and if they were to run with the same model that we have, that's the fees that they're charging, and just taking it from that lens, because we've spent 2 years on this project. There was a ton of data that went into this project. That data was very helpful. But we kind of have transitioned from a pre-pandemic world into a post-pandemic world, and a lot of our own operations have changed in the last year. And really just kind of taking it as a surface view and looking at it and seeing, despite all of their own internal operational things that we may want to consider, if they were to run their programs even the same way that we run them at these fees, there is some subsidy going on there. As you can see from what it costs for our private swim lessons, it costs us $172. Most organizations, yeah, you'll see $280 in Walnut Creek, but that's because they probably can afford it, to your point. They could probably afford it. We know our household medium income, we know our community, we know, that is going to be a big ask for us to go from $119 up to $280. That is going to be a big ask, and that's not what I'm recommending this evening. But that's why I think this conversation is important, and I appreciate your comment and your recommendation. I just don't know if we just don't have the resources to be able to do that. And that's why I'm asking for us to just look at it from the surface of what it's at and try to understand industry-wide what the fees are.
I would say that when I first looked at this, I was thinking the proposal was to charge that at 100%. And I was really concerned that what we were offering was so special compared to the other places, and that we had such highly qualified instructors and programs and facilities that warranted charging so much more than other places. So I'm glad to hear that that's not the actual proposal. So
that is
that's
not.
helpful. So the subsidy part would definitely, being comparable, of course, you don't want to lose tons of money, but definitely knowing what that subsidy would be probably would be helpful, or what it's been, or what City Council would recommend as well, because I know that everyone's talked for many years about the fee structure, and redoing it, and maybe it isn't for everything that's offered, that it's just for certain things. And so it might be helpful to have that piece of information as well to give them.
Yeah, and that's why we try to frame this around the market rate. This is the market rate of what we would charge if the conditions were perfect. But you know, just like every industry, there's a market rate, right? There's the MSRP rate, and then there's the rate that they charge, right? So it's just understanding what our true costs are, what we're charging now, and what the market rate is, and then transitioning that and having that knowledge, and also looking at what other agencies are charging and recognizing that the market rate is not. It's not a realistic rate for us, and it's not an affordable rate for this community, quite frankly, in most areas. That's why there's so many highlighted pink fees up there for us to consider this evening, because again, our goal here is not to outprice ourselves. Our goal here is to have the knowledge and understanding of what our costs are. So that way, when we come up with a new program, let's just say we want to bring adult softball in, we know that our staff cost is going to be X amount of dollars. We know that there needs to be an admin fee of $3.40 applied to it. We know that it's in the sports division, so we need to add the sports division costs. We know that there's probably going to be additional costs like umpires and scorekeepers and all this other stuff. So having that knowledge and knowing where it falls within our cost recovery pyramid, and then recognizing, okay, so I know Walnut Creek charges $675 for their adult softball league. I know that GVRD charges $575. Having that data and really understanding of what the industry rate is versus what the market rate is very valuable, because then you can really kind of figure out, okay, what is an affordable rate at that point? I know my cost is this. My market rate is this, and this is what I want to charge. Is that affordable and equitable rate for this community? And I think that's important knowledge for us to have as we move into the next conversation of really identifying what our proposed master fee schedule is going to look like.
I have a very specific question. The aquatics pool rental, minimum 3 lanes for 3 hours per lane. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Great question, Chair. So we have 6 lanes in our pool, and depending on the type of program that we have determines the total amount of staff. Like our programming dictate the amount of staff that we have to have on the pool deck. If we have a swim team rental, it's broken up by lanes. If we have rec swim, it's broken up by the entire facility, and that kind of, again, the program dictates the staff. Typically, on average, we have 3 staff for just a basic pool rental, like a swim team rental, let's just say. So you have a guard in the stand, a guard in the office rotating, and then you have a senior guard who's on site. 3 staff. We did the 3 lanes for 3 hours as a minimum to cover that cost. If we go any less than that, we're not covering our direct costs of the staff. And so it was important that we identified, okay, so if we're going to have an hourly rate of $9, and we multiply that by 3 lanes at 3 hours, that in general covers our staff costs. And then any indirect costs that we need to consider: water, chemicals, electricity, paper supplies, cleaning supplies, all that other stuff that goes in with that facility usage. So that's why we came up with majority of our facility rentals, there is a per hour with a minimum hourly rate to help cover those costs.
Thank you for that. So the cost then, the market rate is reflective of the per hour rate.
The market rate would be, again, the highest rate that we would charge for that service. So for, let's say, for our facility rentals, instead of it being per program, it's going to be per hour. And then if it's the pool, it's per hour per lane with the minimum. So yes, that is what they would get charged. So for a pool rental, if we're looking at the per lane per hour rate, right now we're charging $12. If we were to go with the market rate, it would be $33.66. And then if you start looking across and you're noticing what other people are charging, which Fairfield, I know in in other areas, it's not typically that high. So it's just to put things into perspective. And again, what's the affordable rate? We know that our swim teams, and we know that anybody coming in that's going to want to rent that pool, they're not going to pay that rate. It's too expensive.
So just to clarify, that's a per lane cost.
Per lane, per hour, with a
Yep.
minimum of a
So-
3-hour rental. Yes.
So $6
So that would be
for 3 lanes.
almost over $100 for per hour for 3 hours. Yeah.
Right.
Same with our baseball fields. Like if you look at the baseball field rate, that's $54 and with a 2-hour minimum rental. So it's $108 for them to rent a baseball field. And then when you look across, most places are only charging $15.
Now, our Little League and soccer teams aren't charged to use those facilities, but if swim team was to come in, they'd be charged to pay.
Correct, because with the fields, there's no staff tied to it, no direct staff. Aquatics, there is. There's direct staff tied to it. We, as a public facility, we actually fall under the California Pool Code, and we fall under the health department. And as a public facility, we are at a different classification than a high school pool or like an HOA pool, and we are required to have lifeguards on duty during program operation hours. Does this all make sense? I know it's a lot of stuff, and I know I'm asking you to consider looking at it from the surface when we look at the comparison rates. But when we, hopefully this is helpful as we move into the next conversation. Are we ready for the next conversation? Okay. All right, as we move on to attachment 5. What you're going to see in front of you and what is outlined in the staff report. You're going to have your market rate for each service. And then part of the master fee is we really want to identify what our resident rate is going to be, what our affordable rate is going to be for our residents. Then if we really want to get crazy, we can identify a nonprofit rate, because we do have a lot of nonprofit I meant to say non-resident first. If we really want to get crazy, we want to maybe consider a non-resident rate, because we do get a lot of individuals that do participate in our programs who do not live here in American Canyon. We get a lot of people who are on the border, Vallejo and American Canyon, that come down. I know people from Napa come down depending on what we're doing. So we may want to consider a non-resident rate. And then we absolutely want to consider a nonprofit rate. We work with, our department alone works with 21 different nonprofit organizations. And I know that they would really benefit from holding, now that we've acquired Napa Junction and we're moving forward with that and with the upgrades and the improvements to it, I know that they would really benefit from having a nonprofit rate, because again, the idea is to support them and support their fundraising efforts, because that most likely that money is coming back to the community in some shape or form, in some type of service or program, or something that's going to benefit this community and benefit this city. Mm-hmm. All fees, I do recommend that they are rounded up to the nearest dollar. It gets really hairy when you're down at the pool and you're like, your drop-in rate is $2.89. Like it's not a good thing. It makes things a little bit easier for the staff and administratively with the department. But as what you're seeing right now, because I didn't want to influence you too much this evening, you're going to have your market rate, and then you have your non-resident rate. And your non-resident rate as of right now is set at 20% lower than your market rate. And then your nonprofit rate, with the idea that they are giving back to the community for those fundraising opportunities, the nonprofit rate is set at the lowest percentage rate of the tier, which is 25% of that fee. And they have to be American Canyon nonprofit organizations. This fee would not apply to outside nonprofits, because there's no community tie to that. And then resident rate, I tried to identify as well, because again, trying to be very specific and not make it too broad, because again, this is going to be a living document that's going to help shape our department as we continue to move forward. So with the non-resident rate, programming would in general be $10 more than the resident rate, which is a typical standard. And then for rentals, it would be either $10 more per hour or 10% more per hour, whichever is greater. And then the drop-in rate would be $1 more than the resident rate. And again, that's the idea that if you have open gym basketball set at $7, and the non-residents would pay $8. And again, we're not outpricing them, because our goal here is, one, we want to serve our residents, but we also want to make sure our programs run. We want to make sure our programs are full, and taking advantage of that opportunity as well. So I am open to your comments. I'm sorry, one more thing, let me backpedal. Again, things are highlighted in red for a reason. These are areas of concern even at the 20% rate that I've identified as the resident rate. And so this is really what I want you to consider this evening. Is this an affordable rate for residents based off of what other organizations are charging? And is this something that you see our community being able to afford and pay for? Thank you.
So, yes, Director Akita, just to clarify, the column that's in mostly pink, well, there's some white ones, that the 20% less than market rate has been applied to that.
Correct.
Got it. And the ones in white seem to be like non-issues, because those are lower than.
Well, they're all 20%. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I don't mean to interrupt you. So the resident rate for all the fees are set at 20% lower. The ones in red are the ones that I've highlighted for areas of concern, because even at 20%, I would consider them to be high for that service.
Oh, okay.
And I shouldn't say the city would consider that to be high for the service.
That makes a lot of sense. The white ones are kind of non-issues, because they look at quick glance generally below the market rate.
Yeah, they either look at the market rate, or they look at the affordable rate of what is comparable to what other agencies are charging. They're comparable to what we would find as being a fair and equitable charge for that type of service. Like the Napa Junction Community Center, $81 per hour is not an unreasonable ask. That capacity is 240 people. It's a fairly large event space. And when you're looking at other agencies, some people are charging more.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yes.
Okay. One thing that might be helpful for the analysis would be to add a column for the current fees. I mean, I'm looking, I know that in the fee comparison sheet, our current fees are listed there.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm just kind of looking between both.
Yeah.
To, just help my analysis, but, yes, I would think that a column for the current fees would be helpful next to the resident rate, and perhaps that can be called, I don't know, resident rate or resident rate at 20% less than market rate.
Yeah, so you
the
notice
verbiage
that
is
box off to
important.
the right.
Yeah.
There is a box that kind of is your key that outlines
Yes, yeah.
what's going on in here. I tried to keep that right front and center in a prominent location to remind everybody of how these fees were determined. But yes, we can absolutely put in there when we go to council, we can put the program costs per program per hour rate. I think that would be very helpful. I think that's a great point. But when we're designing, when we're making the recommendation this evening for the fees that we're going to be proposing to city council, I'm going to be updating this sheet, because this is not what's going to go to council. This is our worksheet.
Right, and I understand that the ones in pink, the areas
Yeah.
of concern, are going to be the big topic of conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Just to follow up to Commissioner Marmel's comments about the pink, just so clarifying it and for our audience, the pink actually is just areas of concern. They don't represent a delta in cost recovery, correct? just want to make sure that just areas of concern, because normally red to me means, oh, there's still an issue with cost recovery. So it's not a cost recovery issue, it's more of a, hey, there's a possible fee increase coming at this rate, it's a possible concern. I just want to clarify that, correct?
Right, it's more of the, I took the mindset of I wouldn't consider this to be an affordable rate. Like when we look at the staff report, when we consider the resident rate, I tried to classify that as the affordable rate for our community. Like what would they afford to pay to be able to participate in these programs and services? And I wouldn't consider any of these fees that are highlighted in red to be an affordable rate for our residents, even at 20% below the market rate.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question about? Can I ask one more question about private swim lessons?
Yes.
I used to teach private swim lessons. The rate is the same regardless of age. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because the cost of the instructor is the same regardless of age. So
Correct.
something that we might want to consider is an age variance in price for teaching, kids under 10 versus adults or whatever. And again, there might be something to consider there. If there's a cost recovery fee, maybe we make less back on the youth and maybe more back on an adult, because the affordability rate of privates for adults versus children are different. So something that we might want to consider. And then just something I want to add, I had a brief conversation with Director Ikeda right before I started about how we present fees. Can I talk about that? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
In the CPG or consumer packaged goods world, we always talk about the fee, right, or the price. So if you go to Safeway and there's a shelf price, that's your everyday price. But then, you get the I'm a club member price, right? And then there's a 30% off price, right? And so people shop that way. They shop like, this is the rate, here's my discount. And so one of the things that I would ask this commission to consider, and as we propose to City Council, is instead of saying, here's our resident rate, and then we're going to penalize you if you're a non-resident, let's just have a rate that represents the non-resident rate, and then as a benefit of being a member of this community, you get the discount. So it shows that there's a percentage discount or whatever it is, and that being a community member of American Canyon, or resident of American Canyon, that's the benefit. You're not paying the rate, whatever that rate is, and that you're paying the community rate, which that's the benefit of being a resident of here. So just something for us to consider rather than having market rate, discounted dish rate, and then another rate on top of that. You don't live here, we're going to charge you more. Versus let's just charge a fee, and if you live here, you can prove your residency, then you get the discounted resident rate. And that's a way of simplifying the presentation of fee schedule. Something to consider. It doesn't have to be, but I think most consumers shop that way. And this is a list of shopping items people are considering for themselves or for their kids or for their organization, and I think it's an easy way to look at it. So something to consider.
Yeah, yes, point taken. I kind of look at the market rate on the sheet as, what everybody else in the Bay Area would pay for something equivalent, and then knowing, hey, in American Canyon we pay X, we pay 20% off. So yes, I agree, that would be helpful. Kind of getting down to like specific analysis. I'm going to gravitate to what I know, and I'm looking at group picnic rental. The current fee is $60. I'm just going to call it proposed resident rate. Really, it's the 20% less than market rate. That turns out to be $70, which in my mind is completely reasonable. But I'm just curious whether
It's $70 per hour times 6 hours.
Okay, that's different. Thank you for the clarification. That's different.
Yes.
So that becomes $210. For 3 hours, yeah?
6 hours. It's a 6-hour rental.
It's a 6-hour minimum.
Yeah, because we do our picnic reservations for full days, and we've averaged that most reservations are there for a minimum of 6 hours. And quite frankly, we don't want to be the park picnic police. And it's like, I've gone to a picnic spot where we had a reservation from 10 to 2, and we're like, well, is there a rental afterwards? She's like, no, don't worry about it. You guys can just stay. And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, so at that point, I become the member of the general public. Like, and now so we're just trying to make it easy for our residents and just like, you just have the space for the full day. It's a minimum of 6 hours. If you want more, you pay more. If you want 6, fine. It's more of an honesty type thing, because we're not going to kick them out after 6 hours. Because at that point, we're not renting after them is my point. We're not having multiple rentals during the day. It's one rental per day per park.
Okay, but just to clarify, that would be 6 hours times 70?
Correct.
Yeah,
that's
that's a
different.
question I had too, because on the fee comparison schedule, it says $10 per hour, 6 hour minimum $60. On the department, the last thing, it just says $70, but is that, so it's not a per, because it doesn't say per hour equals, it just says
I didn't
70.
add the details on there.
Okay.
I apologize.
I think that's why there's a little bit of confusion.
It's actually, I take that back. It's in the middle column, the details. It says per hour,
Yeah.
minimum 6 hour rental. So it is right there.
Got it.
we
Okay, so
did
it goes
keep
from
that.
$10 an hour to $70 an hour is the,
Correct.
that's the
Yeah,
jump.
so
okay.
we're currently right now for our picnic reservations, we charge $10 per hour with a minimum of 6 hours, which is very low. When you look at actually what it costs, and that's not even including the water or the maintenance of the parks. That's just direct. My department costs, I haven't even gotten into park maintenance aspect of things. So right now with our group picnic reservations, our fee, our direct cost for our department is $54.59 per hour. If we were to go with the market rate, which is the $81 minus the 20%, it comes down to $70. But then when you look at all these other organizations, it ranges anywhere between $150 per day all the way up to $240 per day. So there is some threshold there. And our parks are very popular. We only rent to American Canyon residents. They are popular, and every park is full every weekend. So they're used and well loved.
I just had a recommendation. Looking at the residence rate, the market rate, and the nonprofit rate, I know we mentioned like a majority of our programs for the senior citizens are subsidized. I think it would be great to consider like a senior citizen rate, like, and also like a military personnel rate. Because considering like our elderly and, I mean, like the community garden going from $15 all the way up to $91, if I'm reading this correctly. And I just feel like it would be great because I know we have a huge senior citizen population on our community garden, and it'd be great to kind of see that also in one of these columns here on our Parks and Recreation Department master fee schedule.
Yeah, so like I identified, that everything in red is an area of concern for me. So that's why I want to have this conversation with you all and help make an appropriate recommendation to council that we know that would be fair and equitable to our multi-generational, multicultural community, because we do need to consider just our community socioeconomics and household medium income and all that other stuff. Like you all have been in this community for a very long time. And I know if I lived here, I wouldn't pay $131 for semi-private lessons. That's expensive. I just, with 3 kids, like that's expensive. I know that I wouldn't pay $14 to go swimming for rec swim. Family of 5, that's not feasible. So just looking at what is affordable to our community, I think is important, and just taking it from that lens. And I know we want to have that market rate, like Commissioner Plummer had mentioned. I don't even consider the market rate to be an affordable rate at this point. I really don't. And that's why I am pushing more towards a resident rate and a non-resident rate. That is traditional to Parks and Recreation. Residents always pay less than non-residents because there is that community benefit. We do sometimes, I've seen absolutely seniors, like I would never charge, well, I shouldn't say I would never, because I've been asked to do a lot of things in my life. But when you look at the senior drop-in rate, it's telling us to charge $8. That's not affordable. That's not affordable at all. I mean, yes, we have scholarships and there's opportunities for that, but we know that community, like those people would never be able to afford to pay for these types of programs and services, and that's not our goal here this evening.
Director Akita, is our goal to go down the resident rate column and address each line that's highlighted in red or dark pink and talk about what we think a fair and equitable resident rate would be?
Yes,
Okay.
let's do that.
I propose that we start with that then. And I've been doing some high-level math over here, so I'm gonna start with semi-private swim lessons. So my high-level math is that it looks like the group swim lessons at the resident rate of $70 is not of concern. It looks like that's fair market value. It's meeting the tier that we want it to meet as far as cost recovery to the department goes. So when you break that down, basically each student is paying 35 cents a minute for each swim class. So if you apply that to the semi-private, you're getting 3 times as much attention because it's only 2 instead of 6. So 35 cents a minute becomes $1.05 a minute. And then it becomes $105 instead of $131. And I really like that math because it seems, I like to look at this from a mathematical perspective because then it seems like you are getting the value for the money spent, and it's very explainable to the community why that rate is what it is, because you're getting that added benefit of only having one student, and so you're getting 3 times your swimmer is getting 3 times the attention from the instructor than they are from a group lesson. So that hurt my brain, but that's it. It's hurting everyone else's brain now. So I would like to propose, and I'm assuming that this is just a proposal to council. This is just the first step in a proposed resident rate that we don't see as red. I would like to propose the semi-private swim lesson go from the current fee of $84 to a resident rate of $105.
I have a question. Are we waiting to see what the subsidy would be? Or are we just discussing, we agree that that's too much per item? Are we looking to propose something?
I'm gonna be honest and transparent. When I was preparing for this, I had all my fees already prepared of what I wanted to propose to you this evening, and I didn't want to influence that conversation too much. I had made my own recommendation of what I wanted to charge for each of these areas that I found that based off of the research of what our department has already done and just knowing the industry. But again, I looked at it from a lens of not influencing this conversation and allowing it to be more fluid and coming up with the resident rate of what we felt would be equitable for this community. So my goal here this evening is to get a rate for each of these programs of what we find to be equitable for residents, and then hopefully get a rate that we would find to be equitable for nonprofits based off of if you're okay with the fees that are already proposed to you this evening. And then if there's any other considerations we want to make, that's really kind of what our work is here this evening, is giving you all that data and trying to come up with a fee per program. So that way we can develop a proposed master fee schedule and take it to council and get a master fee schedule for our programs and services. And this is a good time to do that because we're actually doing our budget preparations for next fiscal year. And we're in the process of finalizing summer programming, which this would impact. So it really is up to the 5 individuals in this room to provide a recommendation to me on what we think those fees could be. Without trying to influence too much, we chose the 20% below the market rate. It may not be the right rate. It may not just be a flat 20% for all these fees. You may need to go lower. You may need to go higher. It really is taking the data that is before you this evening and understanding what our costs are to run that service, evaluating what the market rate is, and comparing it across the industry standard of what you think would be fair and equitable for our residents. It doesn't have to be a flat 20% per area. We know that the market rate is at the highest max cost recovery of that service. We know that. So if we go down, let's just say even 50%, you're still within that cost recovery tier. And in some areas, you may go down even further because they're in the lowest tier. So that's really what our goal here is this evening, to identify a fair and equitable rate for our residents for the services that we're providing.
Before doing that, I had a question. The group picnic rental, would there be a nonprofit rate for that?
Typically for our nonprofits, when they're doing community events, the city subsidizes a lot. We just give them the facility, pretty much is what it works. Like when we do Juneteenth and we work with Brenda Knight and the American Canyon Arts Foundation, we don't charge them for that park rental. We support that event by giving them the facility and providing, in-kind services as in staff or equipment, things like that. So I'm not proposing a nonprofit rate for the picnic reservations because at that point, if they're doing a community event, they're already getting the better deal of the situation because the city is supporting them in a far greater effort.
Right. I'm asking because I know that there have been times then, let's say you have an end of season, it's not a community event. It is for your team and you're having an end of season culmination celebration. And so therefore wanting to rent a facility at a nonprofit rate, it wouldn't be benefiting the community, but it would be for the nonprofit
we can consider
organization.
that.
So that would be something. And then another question I had is, do you know what the Boys and Girls Club will be charging for their camp this summer as far as a competitor?
They do not charge. They actually it's grant funded. So they get money from the state to pay for that program.
Their summer program.
Yes.
I know they have in the past, but I also know I know they have since COVID, but I didn't know what it was this year because I know it's $100 a month right now for just after school care.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there is some funding is needed, but I do know that there has been a charge. So I wasn't sure if this summer was going to be different than previous.
I don't know what they're charging. I just tried to base our fees based off of what we're doing and the types of in-house field trips that we're providing and the experience that we're providing, and really just looking at what that true cost is for that program. And even with the fee that we were proposing to charge before I came here this evening, it was about $4 an hour. And based off of the hours that they were there, it was about $160 per week, which we found to be fair. It was a fair fee based off of the amount of care that they're getting. It's almost 45 hours of care. And then the half-day camp, same thing. It was 20 hours of care, and it was $70 for a half-day camp. And that was if they're only participating in American Canyon morning program, then they would be able to come into our program. We could charge more. The threshold, there is a higher threshold with that, but we didn't. As a mother of 3, I'm thinking about families that have multiple children, and really just again trying to keep it at a rate that, if you do have multiple children, making that affordable for our families.
No, I agree. I just was wondering if I had 2 options. One was free, and one was, I was just wondering if that
that's,
was looked at as far as
and that's a
what
fair,
you charge.
That's a fair comment, Vice Chair Margolotti. That's a fair comment. This was brought about last summer, and we decided not to do a summer camp last summer because Boys and Girls Club had a summer camp and it was free. But then we received a lot of feedback from this community that they really wanted our camp and that they would pay to participate. And this is kind of just recognizing and realizing that the sandbox is large enough for multiple different types of services, and looking at what each individual group or organization is doing, and allowing the consumer to make that choice. And so I don't know what they're doing this summer. I haven't really gotten to that conversation, but I know last year's program was paid by the state.
I have a, sorry.
Sorry, you can go first. No.
I have a question about the lap swim monthly unlimited. Market rate 287, resident rate 44. Is there a 2 missing?
Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, there definitely is.
Question, so how do we determine the resin rate to be 20% less than market rate? Like how did we come up with that number?
I just picked a number.
Oh,
I just picked a number. I was not trying to influence this conversation. I mean, like I said, I came in here with fully recommendations of what we should charge for each program, and I dialed back, and really just, again, it's having this conversation this evening, and having, because you guys are the body that makes recommendations to council. Yes, our recommendations are influenced by staff's recommendations as well. Like it's this partnership and of back and forth conversation, and then eventually you guys as the body, as the commission, you make the recommendation to council. And the city staff can either take that recommendation, or they can say why they don't recommend that recommendation. But I was really trying not to influence it as much as possible. And that's why you're going to notice a lot of the things highlighted in red, because even at 20%, it's not an affordable rate. And again, it doesn't have to be 20%.
Yeah, because my worry is just like the community garden. Like we're going from like $15, and it's just, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of validity when it comes to like because we're missing like data pieces, and I'm just like worried. Like, is that really a good rate? Or should we go higher on the percent? And that's where I don't know. Just I feel like it's a huge increase, and I just don't want to go from $15 to $91, and like that's more than.
Right. And when we talk about fee increases too, I mean, we can, as we continue having a master fee schedule, just like everything in the world, costs go up. So we're always going to want to reevaluate our fees every year and look at incremental fee increases to help offset those costs. But you're absolutely correct. Going from $15 to $90, that's a big increase. Does it make sense to do that? Probably not. Right now, our community, I'll be transparent, our community gardeners really love the $15 per year. But if you look at what we're what it physically costs to run that program, it's I'm trying to find it. We never really knew what the cost of water was, and now that we've started tracking it, we now have a better understanding, because the water is probably the most expensive cost for the community garden, and they do use water. They use a lot of water.
And for the water, are we on reclaim there, or is that still tap water?
We are not on reclaimed at a community garden. And the reason for that is reclaimed water is great for lawns and trees and things like that. But when you're growing vegetables, you're technically not supposed to spray your fruits and vegetables with reclaimed water. If you did want to use reclaimed water, it'd have to be a drip system, and it'd have to be at the root. And you're leaving that up to the gardeners to have that education and understanding, so that way they can properly wash it at that rate. So right now it's just on regular water. Where is it? What line is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So yeah, we have 100 plots. It's $91 for us to run the program. We currently charge $15, and I know of two that I was able to find, and that's why you only see two comparisons, and that's LARPD in Oakland. These other agencies may have it, but it wasn't easily able to find on their website.
is that $91 per plot or $91 in total for the entire 100 plots?
Per plot.
Per plot, got it, thank you.
I'm just thinking that, I don't, it seems random just to go down and come up with some figure. To me, wouldn't it make sense, and if you're doing 20% all the way down, but you're looking at the different tier it falls in, wouldn't it make sense to pick a figure within that tier? Then it would be per, benefit to the community or individual, and doing it that way, as opposed to just a straight 20% across.
You guys can make that recommendation. Looking at each individual program, and understanding what the costs are, and then trying to find that cost recovery rate for that program, or just picking a percentage in that tier, whatever you guys want to do this evening as a recommendation.
Yeah, because it just makes, to me, it's like, why do we spend so much time looking at the tiers and the benefit to the community if we're just like saying here's the cost and it's 20% less for residents? Like, the community benefit part, I think, has to play into it somehow.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think almost even looking at it per program is helpful too, because again, if you look at each program area, like open gym, $14. Right now we're charging $7, which is an affordable rate. People are paying it. If we wanted to raise it to $8, that could be it too. But it's, again, I would have to do the math to see that it's in the current tier, that it's going to be within that rate, and it may not be 35%. It may be 50% at that rate. So I even think just picking a straight across. What I'm trying to say is, I think even picking a straight across of like, in this tier you need to be at 35%. In this tier you need to be at 50%. I even think there's error in that, because we still may not find a good fee for that service.
Well, and I would say too, if we can settle on a resident rate, then you just increase by 20% to have a rate, because then it's nominal. Then you can still fall within your 5 categories appropriately, and you just move the rate. That's all you do. And it may not be the market rate, but it becomes the rate based on a 20% or whatever number. I think having a straight line discount or resident rate, let's say, makes it easy for people to calculate too. It just becomes real confusing when you've got different percentages you have to work back from whatever the rates are. So just something to consider. Like, if we establish the resident rate and then just move it up a percentage, just call it the rate or whatever it is.
If the commission is amenable, I think that the most important thing to look at when we're looking at this fee schedule is what the current rate is now, because that's what our residents are paying. That's what they have been paying, and all of our programs have been full. And then look at the proposed resident rate, and if there is a huge gap, narrowing that gap. And then if we can come up with some numbers, then maybe we can compare that with what Director Akita has come up with and just see how close we are for a proposal to council. I don't think it's gonna, I think it is gonna just end up being picking costs that we think align with our community and aren't a huge increase, but are enough of an increase that we are getting to those tiers and those cost recovery that we determined in previous meetings.
Yes, because remember, even when we started this conversation, even when 110% made the recommendation for fee increases, it was going to take us years to get those recommendations. We may not get to our full potential of what we want to charge for these programs, because just the industry rate is just not there. The industry standard of what other people are charging is just not there. We don't have the data to support why are we charging $12 for open gym, but Benicia's charging $5. Like, everyone's going to go to Benicia. So looking at it almost from that mindset of, yes, we know that we want this fee is in tier number 4 and that threshold is 50 to 100%, but to get us there, that's going to put us in an area where we're raising our fees almost 25% versus incrementally over the next couple of years. That also needs to be considered. We did a ton of work. We've identified where we want those programs to fall, but to Chair Griggs' point, it may take us years to get there, just based off of what we're currently charging. It makes sense to go from $54 to $70. That's reasonable. It doesn't make sense to go for semi-private swim lessons of what we're charging, which is $119, all the way up to $131. That doesn't make sense, right? Same with private swim lessons. Same with drop-in lap swim. Nobody's going to pay $13 to swim lap swim. Nobody will come. So just, again, recognizing that, yes, we know that this program sits in this tier, and it may not be at the rate of what we want, but we have that threshold to get there over time. And that's where those incremental fee increases come. It's not a perfect science, is what I'm trying to say. It's not a one-size-fits-all at this point.
Trying to wrap my head around what general process we follow right here, the complexity of this. We were starting to look at, well, give a proposal for each resident rate, and there are 30 items here. But it also seems like just applying a straight up 20% market rate formula isn't going to work either. Even if we change that, make it 30, make it 40, make it 50, applying that to all of these also isn't going to work. I mean, it's kind of dawning on me that we need to slog through this and come up with a current fee. And there's also 5 different lines here. The conversation for each line, for each item, could be lengthy. So, any suggestions?
I will give you a couple. I will give you a couple.
Okay.
So what I recommend is where we go back to the fee comparison sheet. That's going to be the most helpful, I think, for everybody this evening. Let's use the Parks and Recreation Department proposed master fee as our working document of where we're going to make changes to. So when we're looking at group swimming lessons, and it costs us $81.33, we're charging $58. So the market fee would be $81.33. Within that threshold, and if we were to just say, look at the proposed rate of $70, we kind of all agree that $70 is a reasonable rate. Is it a reasonable resident rate? Yes? No? Okay. So we have that there. For the semi-private, same thing. It costs us $102. We're charging $84. Market rate's $153. I think being fair and equitable of $105, like Chair Griggs has mentioned, it's fairly within the range that I was going to recommend. I was going to recommend $100. So I think that's a fair rate, and it's still within the cost recovery tier. So it could either be 100, it could be 105, it could be 103, it could be 102, whatever you guys want to recommend.
I like round numbers. 100 or 105, and then following suit with that, the private swim lessons, I would recommend would be 150.
Yes, and I had, just for my perspective, I had 140 for private. Because I was looking at where we were and then where we were going to go. And that is going to be a fee increase of $21 at the 140 rate. If we go to 150, it's going to be a $31 fee increase.
Lap swim drop-in?
I still need a recommendation for private, please.
Yes, well, okay.
What would you like?
Chair Griggs offered 150, no objections.
Okay,
But certainly, if there are objections or a different number, then that needs to be communicated. But if there are no objections, that's a good sign that the commission is in agreement.
okay, good, thank you. Thank you.
So 150 private swim lessons. Lap swim.
Yes. So lap swim, we have it, now this is an interesting one. It costs us $19.08 for a participant to participate. However, we charge $6. Market rate would be $14.31. Our current rate is $6.
This is an area where we think about community benefit.
Community benefit and individual benefit. It's an adult program. It's an adult program, so we want to make that consideration as well. And then when you look at surrounding places, it varies in between $3.75 all the way up to $7. And our pool is, and we need to also consider here, is our pool small? Every program matters, and every program has their impact takes up space. So we need to consider that as well.
Right. Increasing the fee is going to change the number of participants in the pool and our capacity.
Correct.
So, for example, 8 might be reasonable. Okay, I'm going to offer 8.
This is something too that I might recommend a step-up fee schedule for. So $8 for this season, maybe 10
Yeah.
the following season.
I just want to throw something out there. When we get into water exercise, which is predominantly attended by older adults, right now that rate is at $5 and there's more staff entailed. So we would need to consider that too. So if we're going to charge $8 for lap swim, I would recommend that we charge above $8 for water exercise. However, if you raise fees that high for that program, they're not going to be happy because that is a huge, significant increase for them. So we just need to make that consideration. So $6 right now is the current fee for lap swim. $5 is for water exercise. Water exercise has additional staff that are dedicated to that program. So naturally, I would consider water exercise to be more expensive than lap swim. And I would be more inclined to increase water exercise because of the staffing resources versus lap swim because that's more individualized and they don't require additional staff.
Can I just ask you to please clarify though, Director Akita, because you're saying that water exercise is more expensive to
Yes.
run, but it does not reflect that in the program cost per program per hour column.
Because their minimum enrollment is larger than the lap swim minimum enrollment. So the lap swim minimum enrollment is 3. Water exercise is 12. So if the class doesn't meet the minimum enrollment of 12 people, it doesn't run. If lap swim doesn't meet the minimum of 3 people, it doesn't run. So we try to keep it within that same mindset. I apologize, I forgot to include that into the debrief.
Is there an option to decrease the minimum enrollment so the class runs more consistently and increase the cost?
So the minimum enrollment is not the problem. We actually, that class is fully booked. So that class there is 30 ladies and gentlemen in that class. It is fully booked. But they take up the entire pool. They really do, and it's hard to have anything else in that pool. So having that fee be a little bit higher to pay for that space, almost that real estate, is going to make that program more equitable with all the other programs.
And not to get things too complicated, but here we go.
Commissioner Memorial, can you talk into your mic, please?
Yeah, I'll
Thank
even
you.
turn it on.
Thank you.
So, not to make things more complicated, but what's also running through my mind is Commissioner Garcia Arriola's suggestion of senior discounts and military discounts. That may also be an appropriate area for that. which, bottom line is, it complicates things for us a lot. But that might be our suggestion.
Yes, but I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Keep in mind, when we look at the program costs, it's already going to be heavily subsidized based off of the fee that we're going to be charging. So it's already at a discounted rate. And so when we looking at a $5 rate or a $6 rate or even a $7 rate, it would still be comparable with the surrounding fees of what other places are charging for that class. And again, even at a $7 rate, we're not covering the direct cost of our staff per participant. So it is discounted already. So that's just something else to consider as well.
Well, maybe my revised suggestion is going to be leave it at 6.
Lap swim or water exercise? Water exercise is
Lap
$5.
swim drop-in.
Would it be possible instead of coming up with different pricing structures for military and seniors, we have a market rate, we have a resident rate, and then an additional 5 or 7% discount for seniors and military?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that for the adult programming, for the programming that we want to identify. I wouldn't recommend that we do it across the board because we have a lot of youth programming that wouldn't be applicable to that discount.
Just looking at lap swim, like going from the $6 all, and then with the 1908, I think $6 is reasonable. My worry is that we're just gonna go too high, or actually the market fees, what is it, 14? I think 6 is fine. I mean, if we have 30 people there, I feel like it's one of those things where it's better to have our elderly more accessible to going there, and it's a big population that's going there, and I'm just worried that we're gonna, increasing a huge significance is gonna destroy that community, that bond,
Right.
because of a finance fee. And I don't know, I think it's really, I think health and wellness is extremely important, as well as also taking care of our overhead. And I think maybe lap swim could be something we could allocate funds from other programs to be able to have that community continue. Yeah, that's my recommendation.
I also think that we should consider what the drop-in fee is to go to the gym. It's between $15 and $25 for one, for a drop-in session.
It is, and and the reason why it's so high is because we're paying gym rental fees right now to the high school. That's the reason why.
But I mean, also like lap swim is for exercise purposes, right?
Yeah.
People are going to get their daily exercise. And if you're going to the gym, so I feel like
thing.
that's a good comparison point. What's the monthly gym rate? What's the drop-in fee? Can the pool be similar to that? I'm just thinking about things that then make sense to our community,
Yes.
Can I
So we
ask-
have $6 for lap swim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question and clarity from you? Just back on the water exercise piece. The current fee is $5. The current program cost is $12.41 per hour. That's for all participants or per participant?
Per participant.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Okay.
I'm sorry, following that, just to refresh my memory, water exercise drop-in requires more staffing?
Correct. We have a dedicated staff person who actually teaches the class.
So since there's seems to be lots of conversation around lap swim drop-in and water exercise drop-in, did we want to have a proposal for the water exercise drop-in and then go back to the monthly?
So typically what we do for the monthly passes, we give a little bit of a discount per visit to get them to sign up for the monthly pass, because then we actually know how many people are registered. And so if we're going to set let's just say the lap swim at $6 per drop-in, the pass is going to be around $5 per visit to get them, to make it an incentive to get them to sign up for the pass. So once we set that base drop-in rate, then we'll be able to set the pass rate.
Yeah, and I know we're all very sensitive to the pricing, particularly with drop-ins and the affordability of that. But based on what Director Kata just mentioned, you know, we deal with this in CPG as well. You're looking to get people to buy the multiple packages to reduce their costs, but in order to be able to budget better. So, you know, my recommendation would be to move all drop-ins up $1. And then that way your package only moves up $1 as well too, but it still reflects a benefit to buying that monthly rate. And so that would be my recommendation, is to keep it nominal, but then really emphasize the monthly, saying the monthly rate is actually similar to what the original rate was.
So move them up. So we'll do, for lap swim, we'll do 7, which is still within industry standard. And then for water exercise, we'll do 6, which is still within industry standard and still would be considered equitable with that community. It's not a huge increase, and that I think is explainable to them.
So then, Director Akita, with that math, then that would be $6 per visit at 8 visits per month would take the lap swim monthly light to 48.
Yes. Yeah, and that so how that works is they have they can use that pass for the whole month, so they can come 8 times anytime during that month. And then with the monthly unlimited, they can come all the times during, and so we typically average that out as I think it was 20 visits for that, for the unlimited, because the amount of offerings that we offer. And again, it's going to vary based off of the season, and because we try to look at how many times we're offering lap swim. If we're only offering lap swim for 12 times, then we're going to take that discounted rate and multiply it by the max of what opportunity. So that rate may vary. And so what I would probably consider when I make that recommendation to council is I would say for the monthly unlimited, each visit would be set at X amount of dollars. And then we would be able to set that price based off of the amount of opportunities during that month. The 8 visits easy because you get 8 times, but the unlimited tends to vary because there's different opportunities each season.
And I like the unlimited because most people may not come 20 times. They might come 15 times, and so it helps reduce that individual cost, whereas some people might come 27 times.
Yeah.
So you're right, that average of 20, by that math again, would take it from $80 to $100, right?
Yeah.
So $5.
I was just going down the open gym, or the drop-in, and when I'm looking at the cost for open gym drop-in, it says $23.54, I believe. But when I look at it on the other form, it says $13.54. So I was going back wondering why it costs so much more to have staff for open gym versus the pool.
I forgot to add in the other sheet that we have direct rental costs that got left off of that original cost comparison sheet. We pay a rental fee to the school district to rent the gym. That's part of that $23
right, that's something
fee.
new now. Yes,
Yeah.
okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why it's different, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry about that. I noticed that when I was going, that was like, oh.
Okay.
Yes, but that's where that $23 comes from, because there is that rental fee
So it
that we
probably
pay.
used to be that. It used
Yes.
to be probably the 13, and
Yes.
now it's a rental. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. I would like to propose for rec swim, something that I would have liked to be in effect when I was taking my children to the pool. I would like to propose that it is $5 per child and adults are free because you want the adults to come with their child. And you don't necessarily need to charge the adults if you're going to raise the fee for the kids. And a little explanation on the age division. It doesn't look like there's any cost difference, so I don't understand why it's 2 lines here.
So we have a weekend rate and we have a weekday rate. So it costs more on the weekends than it does the weekday. And the reason why we have a rate for everybody that comes in the pool, unless they're 2 and under, because they're really just there to blow bubbles. So it doesn't matter how many people are swimming in the pool. We take total head count in the facility. So we have a max capacity for the entire facility. So we actually have to consider them being a participant of that program. And if let's just say we allowed an adult to come in for nothing but a child $5, we still have to consider that 2 people. And so really it's $250 per person. And that's even below what we're currently charging, because the responsibility on the staff doesn't change if the person pays or not. If they come into the facility, we have to staff based off of the total amount of people that are in that facility. And it can range anywhere between 5 people to 7 people, depending on the max capacity of that facility. And so I'm still recommending that anybody who comes to the door, we charge, because there is going to be an increased cost for that staff to be there, with a parent there or not. Per how we operate today, children under 12 are not allowed to be in the facility without an adult. Children under 5 need to be within arm's reach of an adult at all times. That's how we operate. So if a kid who's under 5 and we clearly see them under 5, or we suspect that they're under 5, or they're in a life vest that clearly indicates that they can't swim, they need to be within arm's reach of an adult at all times. And that does require the parent getting in the water with the child. Children under the age of 12 have to be accompanied by an adult, and that's somebody who's 18 years or older, a guardian. So that's how we operate today, and it's 13, 14-year-olds. I mean, they come to the pool, they're teenagers, but they don't want to go swimming with their parents. But either way, anybody who comes to that door that goes on the pool deck is part of our responsibility, and that's based off of the amount of staff that we have to have on duty.
Can I ask a question? For rec swim, are there group rates or family rates?
We don't.
Something to consider? No?
That's something that we could consider. Our rate's fairly low for what we charge, and quite frankly, I would caution us to go any higher, because there really isn't a lot of amenities that would justify that increase. Like, we don't have a slide, we don't have, even our baby pool is not really functional. So I just caution on raising the rates any higher. I would say maybe $1, but that really is going to be our threshold until we have a bigger conversation about what we want to do to bring in amenities in to drive that higher rate.
Is there going to be a way for people to pay at the point of entry without cash?
We do. We did that this summer. We do not require pre-registration anymore. We took full drop-in. They can pay with cash, credit card. We did not require them to pre-register. We abandoned that ship a long time ago. It was a barrier, and we noticed that it was a barrier. It just was not a good. I mean, unfortunately, it was the action of something that was out of our control because of the pandemic. That was required, and we had no control over that. But the moment that barrier was lifted, we said adios.
Question for the council. Oh, sorry. Please.
Given some of the comments, my proposal is this: recreation swim Monday through Friday 4, and recreational swim Saturdays 5, with the justification that there's an increased program cost on the weekend.
I agree with that. I was just going to make the same comment. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
We don't have a line for the difference between Monday through Friday and Saturday, though, on the master fee schedule.
No, but I can make that.
making sure we're all on the same page. Is the next item Canyon Kids Summer Camp?
Yes.
There really other cities that don't offer a camp?
I wasn't able to find anything right now.
Maybe it's because last year people haven't been doing it.
Yeah, and most people don't have a lot of their summer programming out yet. That typically doesn't come out until March or April.
Well, I note on the master fee schedule, 20% less than the market rate is 161. Given the nominal difference, we keep it at 160.
Yeah, and that comes out to be $4 per hour. And if you're looking at the Monday through Friday option from 8 a.m. to 4:30, it's roughly about over 40 hours per week of care for summer camp. And we do have 2 staff per classroom, and there is a max threshold for each class. So the space is limited, is what I'm trying to say. And then with that same concept, we do the half-day camp, which would be from 12 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And the reason why that's discounted is because it's a half-day camp, and they're already participating in some other camp that we're providing. So it'd either be like an enrichment camp, like a Lego camp that we're going to be offering, or like our sports camp. So they have to physically already be registered in one of our camps, and then they come to the afternoon program. So that way it gives families flexibility to build their own summer. So that way they're not stuck in the box. But it's not a traditional half-day camp where you can just come in half-day. You have to be registered for something else.
Well, just speaking for myself, I'm comfortable with having those fees as they currently stand.
Okay, thank you. Open gym, I would caution us to raise those fees any higher. If anything, I would say 50 cents, just to round it up to the nearest dollar with that same concept. But again, we're limited with the amount of people that we can have within open gym. Our max capacity is 40 people. And so I would be afraid to raise it any higher and lose participation.
And just to clarify, open gym is at the community center.
It's at the middle school gymnasium,
Right.
which is, yeah.
Yeah. They're synonymous.
They left the sign still up on the side of the building.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the community center anymore, but that the sign's still there.
Right. It's the middle school gym.
Yes.
That's going to take some getting used to. And the school district charges us a fee?
Correct.
I'm kind of aware how much they are charging for private events now, and it's astronomical.
Yes.
Is there is that the same for their charge to the Parks Department or to the city?
Weekdays, we pay $34 per hour. Weekends, we pay $74 per hour. We need a gym.
I know we need, right. Well, crossing our fingers for when Junction,
So
Old Napa Junction is online.
should we look at,
Well,
does it make a difference to drop in weekdays versus weekend price as well, like the water drop-in?
No, because we only do open gym Monday through Friday, so we don't do it on the weekends. We try to avoid programming on the weekends because the cost is so high. Right now, we do have a program running on Saturdays, and that's our Junior Warriors basketball program. But if we don't have to be on the weekends, we try to avoid it.
well, Director Akidi, I think your point's well taken to round it up to 8.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so senior programming is very unique. We, just kind of giving you the history and the background, we provide programs and services, and at some point prior to me coming on board, a decision was made that there was going to be no fees charged for those drop-in programs. That's not my recommendation this evening. That wasn't a direction that was given to us by council. That was a decision that was made by staff. And I'm not recommending $7, but I do recommend that there is studies showing that if you charge a minimal fee for programs, people find more value in that. And when you look at what other people are charging throughout the Bay Area, your threshold is anywhere between $1 to $4 per program. There is also conversations of us trying to have a monthly pass for these participants, and that would lower that cost as well, and provide an opportunity for them just to be able to come in and participate in any program, kind of like almost the same setup as Lap Swim, like 8 visits per month or an unlimited pass. And then the other great thing is, since we partner with ACCPF, we do have scholarship programs. So if it is a burden to where they can't pay for that pass, they can absolutely apply for that scholarship to pay for that fee. And then on the other side, we are working on trying to get Silver Sneakers, which is a program that's done through individual insurance that will pay for programs and classes for adults that fit their mission, which is health and wellness. So that way that cost is covered by that as well. But my recommendation this evening is not to stick with $0. We do have a cost. And my recommendation is to charge at least a minimal fee for these drop-in programs.
Just for some insight, this body has had, very strong advocacy for seniors. So I suspect that's, the origin of $0. But we were also just very aware that, our seniors they're a limited income, and to have them active is such a benefit to the community. My proposal is $1 with an appropriate fee for light passes and unlimited passes, whatever that. I don't want to do the math. Sorry.
So I would be more concerned if we didn't have scholarship options and other options that would help subsidize that as well. When we already look at the senior programming, it's already in tier 2. And right now it's set at 50%. Even at 25%, which is half of $7, it's $3.50. So what I was recommending in the range of $2 to $3 per program, and then making that discount for the passes even lower. And again, trying with that same concept. We're trying to get people to commit to these programs.
Yeah. Well, speaking for myself, I can live with that.
I would like to propose $3 for the drop-in, and $2 times 8 minus $1, because I like even numbers, and then 30 for the 15.
Perfect.
Not to, just kind of curious, I mean, would it be, and I like the whole numbers, like 3, 2, 1 all makes sense to me, but what if we looked at like a 2, 150, 1 or something like that, instead of making that drop-in fee $3? It seems, if you only drop in 2 or 3 times, you're already paying the monthly rate, and I guess the drop-in, again, I know there's subsidies for it too, but again, just speaking out loud, maybe we look at fractionalizing it a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And do like a 2, 150 and a 1 or something like that, or even it could be a 2, 1, 50 cents or something like that. I don't know. I mean, just again, I think it's something just to talk about.
Or also just not like going from 0 to 3 right away, just seeing how your participation is if you do $2 as a drop-in, because you don't know how that will be received. So going slowly with that.
And that is a good point. I mean, we're going from charging nothing to now we're going to be charging something, and even that something, although it may seem minimal to us, it could be perceived as being a great fee increase.
Yeah.
And I
We
think,
could do like 2, 10, 20. Sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking $1 would be feasible and just make it incremental. That way we could also receive feedback from our citizens, and they could also, I'm curious to know if they even have, are hopefully they're watching this and they're considering that we're going to start charging a fee when this was free. And I think $1 would be fair, and that way we could also hopefully not go with $2, $3, something crazy where they're like, you know what, I can't afford it, I can't do it. And or else we could have their feedback, and maybe the following future we could hear them and say, hey, look, we understand it when $1, but now maybe $2 or whatnot. But I think $1 is reasonable from going to free to at least $1.
And the recommendation, it sounds like from my colleagues, is that it be incremental, well, we'll look at it in a year and see what the feedback is from the community. But I'm not sure if we need to vote on this, but $1? $1 and, whatever, $1, 8, and 15. With those caveats.
All right, thank you. All right, community garden, my favorite one.
I have a question before we go too far with that. Where did it stand after the big community garden discussion? What was the, I know that there was going to be what was, like, there was a discussion, things were going to change, and then it stopped, and then it was going to be rolled out in some way, and I don't remember what that was. So what stands in written form, understanding with the community garden stakeholders, what does that left off?
So Liz is gonna correct me if I'm wrong. Before I got here, there was a recommendation to raise that fee, and I believe it was up to $50, right? $100. And they were notified, and I think that there was a lot of negative feedback regarding that. And so it was put on hold with the intention of getting this completed, this project, of really truly understanding of what our service fees are costing us and having a better idea of what our water costs were, because that was where the main concern is water. And so it's been put on hold until we have done this project. I would caution us to go to $100. Again, this may be an incremental fee increase approach over the years, because there is a community benefit to it. However, there's a lot of individual benefit to it, but going from 15 to 100 is a lot.
I think that there was a lot of concern about lack of notice and when contracts were being signed and multiple plot holders, and there was a lot of different things that went on as well.
Yes. So
I don't know when things would roll out with this and how
Yeah.
that would be as far as notice, because clearly if things are going up for everybody, each person's not going to get an individual notice that you're planning to raise some fees to cover some costs, yet you're still subsidizing them significantly.
Correct.
And then let's, I don't know.
Well, there's two ways of doing it. So right now we're going through our renewals. We've made a lot of progress over the last 2 garden seasons that I've been here. We went down we had several plot holders that had multiple plots, and we reduced a lot of those plot holders down to 2 plots. And then even some of them even down to 1 plot. So we were actually able to reduce our waiting list from 30 people down to, I think, 10 participants left on it. And then as of this year, those individuals that had multiple plots were put on a lot of notice that they would be required to go down to 1 plot this garden season, and to allow additional opportunities to individuals on the wait list. Right now, I can confidently say that each gardener has 1 plot. If we were to roll out a fee increase, with us already doing renewals right now, we have 2 options. One could be we could wait until next garden season to put out that notice that as of next year, your fee will be $50 or whatever that cost is. I'm just using that as a number. Or 2, we could do it like most parks and recreation, not most, but the other strategy is that you put all your programs on notice that as of April 1st or May 1st, whatever the date is, your fees are going to go up. That's another strategy. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the best strategy for the community garden. It may work with some other programs to fit with that aligns more with our budget discussions. But since we've kind of already gone through the renewal process, it just, for me, it's a little clunky, and it just most likely would not be the best recommendation to do that. So we would just want to take that into consideration.
Yes, I would agree. Like, if the renewals are happening, then it is what it is when the renewal happened, and that then for the next year, whatever the cost would be, that there would be notice because, right. And then, so then are there any people that are then on the wait list still? Are we still looking at that, even with the one plot?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Liz. Liz oversees the community garden. She has all the details.
All the details. We do currently have a waiting list. We currently have about 32 people, and that has grown over the year since we were able to exhaust it pretty much last year. But again, we've had a lot of interest come up, and some of the other plot holders that have moved on, I think other family members that are not residents are interested in becoming community gardeners also. So as of right now, because we've had, I think there was approximately 8 community gardeners that had multiple plots, some up to 2 or 3. There will be, I'm not sure the final number because we're in our final week of renewals, and we have had some people forfeit. So we're hoping to at least cut the wait list in half, if not more. But we won't know until probably early next week of how many plots we actually have.
And I know this isn't on tonight's agenda, but I do know that, we have had public comment and discussion about adding, and if there is space, as far as if there is that big of a wait list, looking at maybe potentially having a second community garden somewhere.
Absolutely, and I know that's been a conversation of council, but it's also been a great initiative of our department to get this community garden. The department needs to manage this community garden better, and I think we've made great strides over the last 2 years, and we really want to put some good foundational roots in place before we expand that program, because there is some areas that we have identified an opportunity for us to make improvements. And that's really what we've been doing over the last 2 years of really just, to be quite frank, it was almost like the wild, wild west. There wasn't a lot of oversight. And there was some funny business going on out there, and we've really just made great strides. I'm trying to be delicate.
Great job.
Trying to be delicate. But, we really have made great strides in having more of a city presence and having it be more of an organized utopia versus the wild, wild west. And we're actually pretty excited about the possibility of expanding it on I don't know my north, south, east, or west, but I think that's the east side, an opportunity over there as well, because I know there's a lot of interest, and that's why our wait list continues to grow. Like, we bring it down, and then more people get on it. And some of our garden holders have been in there since its existence, which is pre the city incorporation. So we're talking 30 plus years. So I know that there's a lot of interest elsewhere in the community too.
Yes, I'm remembering when it was, when the community garden issue was a very touchy issue. Very happy to hear that there's been a lot of house cleaning
Yes.
going on. That's great. We got to bring the conversation back to a fee. I don't hear any numbers going out, so.
Well, right now, based off of what I was able to find, you have a threshold of $30 to $50, which seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So again, this could be something that we can increase over time. It could be an incremental fee increase. Now that we know what our water cost is, and
Right.
keep in mind that water usage it's very dependent on the individuals that are using it. I mean, we're noticing people flooding their garden, and we're noticing some people that garden like me, their plants are dying. So it really just depends on the water usage, and that's going to be something we're going to have to continue to evaluate each year. Luckily, we have that mechanism now to evaluate the total water usage per year, and then we can allocate it per plot, and then we can suggest a new fee increase each year to try to get to that ideal rate that we want to charge.
So I think, well, what I will propose is $30 with an incremental, with an incremental possibility, but also really working with the gardeners on their input on Community Garden 2. Hopefully that'll be a thing, and the notice issue.
Can I ask a question about the, is there limitations on types of vegetables that can be grown or okay, so because I know some plants use more water than others, so that's being considered already? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so for like right now we don't allow corn because it grows and it casts shadows and things like that. So we just, again, it's hard to police that area without being fair and equitable to other gardeners. We've had a couple complaints about certain things like pollinating and getting on vegetables, and unfortunately that's what happens when you have a community garden is things, it's a small space and things happen. But just, again, if as long as it's not hazardous or detrimental to someone's health, or they're not doing something that would be considered bad behavior, or you shouldn't be growing it. The limitations are pretty limited, and it's just really just to be a good neighbor.
So you do have a pollinator restrictions as well too, as far as types and what they do? Is that what I'm hearing? There's cross-pollination issues?
I don't think we do.
We do have a restricted list. It can be found on the website. I don't have it memorized, but there is a kind of a do's and a don'ts. And like Director Ikeda
Okay.
saying, it's all about being a good neighbor. There are certain plots that, grow a certain bean, maybe David, you can help me, but they flood their plots in order to have it. And so, there's been just an educational piece about that also, and just keeping the communication open amongst the gardeners about how that can affect fellow plots. So for the most part, the garden season goes pretty smoothly, and it has improved over time the last couple of years. And we do have a stronger presence out there. We have a community garden, cleanup day that we really encourage everyone to come out, meet your neighbors, all that good stuff. So it's a work in progress. We will admit that.
Yeah. But, yes, but Commissioner Plummer, when they mentioned that it was the wild, wild west out there, and there was a lot of policing, and well, they were kind of doing their own thing and seeing what they could get away with. That is not an exaggeration.
My only comment, I don't know if this is even relating to it. I remember when I was a maintenance worker, there was weeds around the garden, and the city, we did our minimum to do. And my worry was there was pesticides we were spraying along the community garden to get the weeds away, and I don't know if that's changed. Because that was one of my concerns when I was out there working. We were using Roundup. I don't know if we prohibited Roundup in our city yet.
We do. Yeah, we actually have a Roundup policy. We don't use Roundup.
Okay. Yeah, and then, but other than that, I've definitely seen change, like, ever since I was a parks worker, being a service worker, being out there, taking care of our community. So I appreciate the change, and it's noticeable now, yeah.
And Director Ikeda, the fee this year is going to continue to be the $15.
It is, because we're pretty much almost done with the renewals, and it would be really awkward and it just would not probably be the best practice to go back and say, oh, by the way, your fee is now X amount of dollars. I would feel more comfortable, especially for my staff who are going to be the ones at the brunt of these conversations, that we start the work now and we just notify them and saying, as of next year, kind of like what we did with the whole reducing your plot from 4 to 1. We start that work now and say, as of next year, your plot fee will be X amount of dollars, and getting them prepared, because even even with a 12-month advance notice, we will still have people telling us that they never received the information.
And can you remind me, the meeting that we had that we received a lot of public comment and there was discussion around the community garden plot fee. Was that a year ago or 2 years ago? Okay, so it was 2 years ago. So there's been a free pass here for a couple of years.
Yes.
So I think that it's more than time to raise the fee, but not during the renewal process. So I would agree with going to $30 or even $40 for next year, and then $10 increments to get us to fair market value.
I would agree with that as well, too. I was, in my head, it was 30, 35, and then looking at future incremental. And I think in light of what's happening in this state with water restrictions and water issues, not saying it's easy to explain that to anybody, but I think that most people understand that their own water bill has increased, and therefore the city's water bill has also increased, and there has to be a cost associated with that. And so
Yes.
hopefully that's the lead when we have an open forum with the community, that we do discuss the water issues in the city and why those fees need to be passed along.
Yes, thank you. Okay, aquatic rental. Right now we do have a nonprofit rate for our aquatic rental. I believe it's about $9. And then we have our regular rental rate, which is $12, which is pretty comparable to what other people are charging. I would just caution going above that because, again, it's the per hour per lane with a minimum of 3 lanes and a minimum of 3 hours, and it does add up. And our rates are pretty comparable with industry standard. That change was made when I came on board, just to have, again, a more fair and equitable rate for what we were doing out there with the staff. So I would say even the fees that we have now are pretty good.
You probably don't have a lot of non-nonprofit groups coming in anyway.
No, we don't. We right now we serve DART, which is an American Canyon USA swim team, and then we have AHI, which is a American Canyon recreation swim team. And they pretty much take up all the pool rental times that we have available. Okay, baseball fields. Is everybody, I didn't hear anything, so I'm moving on. Per Commissioner Mamrell's advice to keep this meeting going. I don't want to be here till 10 o'clock. So baseball field rental, we are charging right now $15. It's pretty fair and equitable what other people are charging. I would be... if we went up $1, I'd be okay with that, but I really wouldn't go up any more than that, just because, again, our fields are not in the best condition, and really, to charge a higher rate, you need to have better athletic fields. Mm-hmm. So I would just most likely to stay at that rate if we're all in consensus with that.
I would agree. They are not in good shape, and so you can't charge for the shape that they're currently in any higher than that.
Okay, field prep. Staff, that's the direct staff cost if we were to come in and prep that field for them, drag it, water it, chalk it. Again, that's the direct staff costs. And that would be, it equates to about 45 minutes per field.
So is that $64 then for the resident fee, since it's a minimum of?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
hours?
not supposed to be there. I apologize. That is actually not supposed to be there. So it takes about 45 minutes to prep a field. So that's what that rate is at, is 45 minutes. And it's dictated by us of what it takes to prep that field. So it would just be a flat $25.
So that's flat then?
Yes, flat fee.
Of 32?
25.
Or 25 currently, 32 proposed?
I didn't propose 32, but if you want to do 32, we can do 32.
Oh, I just noticed it wasn't red.
On the recovery
The
cost is.
field prep is not in red. The field prep is in yellow.
Okay, so
Or is it in red on this one? Sorry.
No, it's white.
Okay,
Yeah.
white, 32. That was the resident rate at the 20% below. So if we want to make a recommendation.
Well, and the recovery cost is $24.51 for the total time, correct? So we're already recovering 100% of that now.
Yeah, if we do 25, yes.
It sounds like we're gonna leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
Where are there turf fields that the city owns?
So turf fields are grass fields. So Kimberly Park, Com Park,
I don't know what, I was thinking, what's the other stuff called?
synthetic.
I feel like they call it something else too, but that's why I was thinking turf in my mind. Okay, got it. AstroTurf.
You know me and my fancy words. My engineered wood fiber.
So I'm not seeing, if it's youth programs, if it was youth programs, wouldn't there be a nonprofit rate for,
So right now, we
or
don't,
you're not charging the soccer? Okay, so that's the same as baseball, so that's why it's not showing a nonprofit rate on there.
right, but doesn't mean that we can't move towards that model. And if we had, for instance, we got approached by an American Canyon nonprofit girls softball that wants to rent, and it would be appropriate to have it for those instances because, you know, if there is any available time and they're an American Canyon nonprofit, we can consider that as being a rental and have a nonprofit rate. So right now, when you look at the fee comparison, this has a higher threshold because it's grass. And again, I would kind of caution going too high because again, when you're really maintaining an athletic field, they are in a different type of condition than what we currently have right now. We do need to have that conversation of what that maintenance of those athletic fields look like. And that's not considered in here. That's not considered in regards to the maintenance costs to maintain an athletic field. They do require quarterly maintenance, aerating, fertilizing, seeding, all that stuff, and it does add up. It's pretty expensive. So even right now, if we were to just keep it with youth programming, $15 is what we're charging now. We can have an adult one. That's where I probably would charge a little bit more for an adult because most of those programs, like it's cricket, it's adult soccer leagues, they're adults. So we could probably charge maybe $20 for them to play per field. And when I say per field, you take Kimberly Field, that if it depends on how many fields they're creating, not how many fields we have. So you can take Kimberly Field and you can have 2 football fields, or you can have 3 soccer fields. It's how many fields that organization is creating on that piece of turf.
I had a question. And are those fields like contracted out? Because I've seen like landscape companies out there. Are those like Kimberly Park? Is that part of our maintenance crew or is it subcontracted out?
Some of our parks are contracted out. Not all of them are done by city staff. So it's a combination. I don't know which ones are contracted and which ones are not. I just know that we have a combination here in the city. We have 22 parks. It's a lot for a team of 4 to maintain. And it's an unrealistic expectation for them to do that. So the contract is that supplement to help with the amount of things that are happening. Because it's not just, they have to deal with trees and pruning and gardening and a lot of other stuff.
And have those contractor fees, have they gone up over time or are they just kind of steady or?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's not in our department. But I can find out for you. So we're okay with the $15 and the $20? Okay.
And that's a flat rate. It's not
Flat.
per hour.
This one actually would be. It's a minimum of 2 hours and it's a per hour rate.
So it's going to be 30 then.
Correct, for 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings us to court rental. Some background on that. Just, you know, when people go out to our courts to play tennis or pickleball, they don't rent it.
They don't have to.
Yeah.
Nope. So the rental fees are there for people that want to physically rent it and make sure they have the space. Anybody can go out to any of our parks and to our fields and even our picnics. They don't have to rent the picnic reservations. They can go out there and
Go and enjoy
go
the
at
picnic.
7 o'clock in the morning and sit out there and,
I got it. This
So-
is to reserve the space.
correct, to make sure you
Got it.
have the space.
Should we change the nomenclature to state reservation versus how it's listed now? How is it listed now? Rental?
Yeah, rental, park rental.
Could we call it reservation? Because I mean, like you said, people will just go out and play there, but if we said it's actually a reservation for a block of time,
Yeah, we can change the word.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
it makes a little bit more sense. People understand reservations.
Okay.
and which is kind of, given that people can just go out there and enjoy our courts for free anyway, I don't know, putting a number just, well, I'll propose 20, but I'm kind of curious about how many people actually reserve our tennis courts.
We
I
don't
didn't
get,
think- I
we
didn't
don't
think
get a
there'd be many.
ton. No, we don't, and it's for
Yeah.
that very reason. But
Yeah.
I will say, I've seen pickleball. I mean, it's
Right.
that can happen in this community. It hasn't really picked up here like it has in other places in the Bay Area. But even then, when you look at the threshold of where we're at with the $10 all the way up to 15.
Okay. So, the scenario that comes to mind is the National Pickleball Association.
Yes,
Says,
And
hey, we
it's
want to
big.
have your tournament over here in American Canyon.
I will be charging them.
Let's give them some money. We're down. Give 'em- yeah, let's charge them, right?
I will be charging them.
Yeah,
My whole
absolutely.
philosophy is if you're charging, we should be charging. So,
Okay. Well, they would fall into the outside organization trying to rent our stuff. So
yeah.
they should get a different fee. But I don't know. Yeah, it's really hiked up non-resident fee. I don't know. 20 seems reasonable.
20's a little bit outside of the industry standard right
Well,
now.
okay.
Well, it's a
keep
2 hour
it at 10.
It's a 2 hour minimum also, right? So you're already
Yeah,
paying.
so it's
Oh, okay,
$10
okay.
per hour.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I like
Okay.
the $10 because that's $5 per player basically to go and hang out for 2 hours, and that's just for the reservation, like you said. Most pickleball players are just walking out there and playing
go.
anyways. But if you're like really adamant, because I've
Right.
taken my kids, we got pickleball for Christmas, and let's go play. And there's some serious people out there playing.
There-
Oh, we better be careful out there.
There
But
are. There's people who are out there kind of regularly on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is good. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so $10 per hour for 2 hours equals $20. Okay. I'm following. Okay, picnic. Right now, it's $10 per hour with a minimum of 6 hours.
Sorry, can I just say something really quick? I apologize. Instead of saying $10 per hour, didn't you just say it's $20 to rent for 2 hours? Does that make a difference? Do we have to list it as a per hour rate versus just it's $20 and you get 2 hours reserve time?
For the way that the community is, it's more of like for them to understand. Liz, you can probably speak to that with dealing with the rentals. With having that minimum requirement is great, but I don't think does it matter if it's per hour or just for 2 hours?
Well, the reason I ask is because, I want to do 2 hours, but I don't want to add an hour. Well, then you should just buy blocks of 2 hours at a time
Yeah.
versus trying to add an hour. Because then to me, a per hour rate suggests I can add an hour on. To me,
And you
as a
can.
consumer. Oh,
And you
Okay,
can.
so that I wasn't clear on that.
Yes,
Okay.
and you can. And so like the minimum is 2 hours, but you can rent it up to 6 hours. You can rent it to 3 hours. You can rent it,
Okay,
yeah. So the per hour rate for that reason is why it is, yeah.
now I understand better. Thank you.
It says minimum 6 hour.
For the picnic reservation. Okay, picnic reservations. Right now, we're charging 60 for the total. Our hourly rate is $50, $54 per hour is our hourly rate. When you look at other places, they're charging anywhere between $150 for the day up to $240 for the day.
I have felt for the longest time that the city was subsidizing my private, my family picnics out there. And so my proposal will be, well, $25 per hour, so a 6-hour minimum is gonna end up being $150.
Question before, I think you're correct in going up, but am I correct in saying there's also an insurance added cost that's gonna be added to that too, which would be a line item? So you'll have your per rate hour for the rental of X plus the additional mandatory 100 something, so the rental is no longer just $200, now it's $360. So again, total cost is gonna be a little bit higher, so 25 might be a little high. Maybe we go to $18 or $20 per hour because that additional insurance is gonna become a mandatory pass-through cost.
Thank you. I had not factored that in. So 20.
Totally stole my thunder.
I'm sorry, Director Ikeda, I will stop
No, I
talking.
appreciate it.
Super knowledgeable. Good job.
He's paying attention.
I didn't know that the insurance was provided by the city.
It is. So we actually require it. And the reason for that is I worked at an agency where we would allow people to bring in their own homeowner's insurance, and not every deck page looks the same. You actually spend a ton of time looking through deck pages and making sure that they have the 1 million general liability, 2 million aggregate. And it's really hard because then we're chasing down endorsement pages because insurance policies mean nothing without an endorsement page. So we're actually spending more time working with individuals, with them being able to provide their insurance versus just making them purchase insurance through us, which is a fair cost, because even when you add that type of umbrella, it's pretty much around the same. Unless you already have that umbrella. But for us, logistically, with an admin, it just flows better with them just being required to purchase our own insurance because we know exactly what we need. We get what we need from the insurance provider. We set it up for them. We get it for the date, the times, everything. It's done. And it's really nice and convenient for the renter as well because they don't have to chase it, and then we don't have to chase down paperwork. So with general liability, it's $87. Plus the $25 fee for staff time, which comes out to that $112. And then for rentals, that with general liability who are serving alcohol, it's $150 plus the $25 fee for staff, so it comes out to $175. That was a big deal. I will be transparent. We started doing that in January. It was a big deal. But we were recommended by legal to start doing that for our rentals because they are individual parties. They're not things put on by the city. It's somebody coming in and renting a city facility for their own individual interest.
And so, Director Ikeda, when you say $150 is the cost of the insurance if they're going to serve alcohol and a staff member, that means that if they're going to have alcohol at their party, a city staff member is there?
No, the staff cost is the staff that takes the information, works with the insurance company, generates the certificate, sends out the certificate, collects this, and then at the end of a rental, they report back to the insurance company the party. So there is a lot of administrative time associated with that. So that's what that $25 fee, it covers that administrative cost to generate the certificate.
Okay, thank you. That makes
You're
sense.
welcome.
And I have a question for the commission. To me, it makes sense to, instead of it be an hourly rental and a minimum of 6 hours, let's say during the summertime, someone decides that they're going to rent it from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. You're not going to really be able to rent on either side of that. What if we had a half-day rental rate, and those are designated times? So your half-day is from 8 to 1, or from 2 to 7, and your full day is the whole day. Now you can go out when you want, and the site is yours for the whole day.
May I comment on that? Okay. We really don't want to be the park police. Having a half-day option really puts us in a prickly situation. because then that would require us to go down there and regulate their time. Like, you need to be out by 2 o'clock. We have another renter coming in. We have found having one rental per day. It works with our community. They enjoy it. They're not feeling rushed. Even if they put on their applications, they only will be there from 10 to 6. And if they end up being there till 8, as long as they're out of there by sunset, we don't care. It's because all of our parks are open from sunrise to sunset. Having that half-day option, and if we put rentals in there after, that would require us to now police those. And it's putting staff in a situation where I've experienced where those renters don't want to leave, or they don't leave on time, or they leave the site in a condition in which when the next party comes in, it's not clean and presentable for that party. So I would like to stick with the one rental per day. I like the flat rate. I think the flat rate is better than just a 6-hour. I think the daily rate, yes, we want to know what time you're going to be there. So that way we can make sure the facility is clean. But you have it from sunrise to sunset with a flat rate for the fee instead of the $10 per hour. Because even then at $10 per hour, it's kind of comes down to like an honesty thing. Like, oh, we're only going to be there for 6 hours. And so now they're only paying $60 when now they're really out there all day. They're getting the benefit of that. And instead of their rate being $10 per hour, now it's $3 per hour. So just having that flat rate probably would be the best move, and just allowing the flexibility for the community because they're out there all day. Anyways,
So we need to change the verbiage then to all-day rental.
we can.
Okay.
And I would say because of the insurance costs, maybe having the 120 rate would be good as a starting point, because of those additional costs that are required of our renters. And then in the future, we can do that incremental fee increase. It's going to be like one of those programs where we can increase those fees over time, because we know that there's a threshold there.
I mean, so the real cost is going to be doing the math, 206, 207, huh?
Is it the general
At
liability
120.
insurance rental? 232.
232 for all day.
Wait a second, hold on. So it's
I can live with that.
general liability insurance at 112 plus the cleaning. Is the cleaning fee 100 or is that not?
Not for the
Is
outside
that something
part.
else?
We don't charge a cleaning fee for
Okay,
our picnic
thank you. I was
reservations,
confused.
right?
Okay.
I wanted to make sure about that.
So 172 right now is the current rate. Is that what we're saying?
We do, I'm sorry, we also charge a $100 damage deposit, but that's refundable.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So 112 plus the 60 is 172. Is that the current rate, correct?
Correct.
And we're proposing what?
120 for the all-day rental, plus they have to get the
Plus the
112
So
insurance.
232. is what we're saying.
232.
Okay,
Or
just-
if they're
that's
serving,
fair.
or if they're serving alcohol, 270.
Right, that's
Correct, correct, yeah.
variable.
Gotcha, okay.
Well,
So essentially just doing the 120 rate for the day.
Okay, great, thank you so much. Okay, facility rentals, we're getting into our recreation rent building, which is right, it used to be the old city hall. It has a max capacity of 67 people. Right now, we're charging $27, which is a steal. It's a steal. Again, I need to stop influencing. We have our direct program costs of $63.20 per hour. Again, this is an hourly rate with a minimum of a 3-hour rental. And other people with the same type of facility, with the same capacity, are charging anywhere between $49 per hour all the way up to $105 per hour.
Can I ask a question about the facility?
Yes,
Does it have kitchen?
it does.
Okay. And another question would be, what was the city charging private parties for to rent the community center gym?
Go ahead, Liz. I'm sorry, Miss Lozano.
Thank you, Director. It was $52 an hour for residents at the community center gym.
Okay, thank you. And the capacity was 360? Okay.
I think we should consider like a square footage approach, because I know that recreation building is relatively small. And I mean, 27 is reasonable for how big our structure is and how many people you could fit. And that way we don't just go up like a crazy amount, and it just discourages people to even go there from how expensive it is and what they're getting for the square footage. I think considering that for all rentals besides the parks, well, for facilities at least.
So keep in mind with our rentals, this is an opportunity to charge a little bit more to help offset and subsidize other programs. We know our direct cost for facilities is $63. I'm not recommending that for this building per Commissioner Garcia Ariola. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly? Thank you. Point, because it is a smaller facility and it has a capacity of 67 people. But raising it a little bit to get closer to that at true cost is going to be important for this area. Because if you're looking at what other places are charging for similar size facilities, and again, if they're staffing it the same way that we're staffing it, it's still somewhat being subsidized in that capacity.
I think our current rental costs are very low. Rentals in general are expensive, whether you're talking about facilities or tables and chairs and tents. It's expensive. It's a lot of labor for the people who are managing the rental, and in this case, city staff. So I would like to propose changing that to 40.
I agree with that. I'm also wondering whether it would be an appropriate time to talk about nonprofit rates, or do we want to handle that separately after going through the list?
So based off of, excuse me, so the master fee schedule of what we have right now for the recreation building, the nonprofit rate would be $24. And remember, we're taking that market rate and it's put in its category, and it's at the lowest rate, which is the 25%. Mm-hmm. So right now, if we were to stick with the nonprofit rate, it would be $24 per hour for a nonprofit.
Yeah. I just want to make sure it's on
Yeah,
record that we
absolutely.
want to,
It's a good point.
well, that there's going to be a distinction between a private nonprofit event versus a community benefit event, i.e. Juneteenth.
Correct. So remember, a community benefit event, the city supports.
Right.
Right? So we typically don't charge for those type of events. We support those events by giving them the facility in exchange for them bringing this amazing community opportunity. Mm-hmm. For Kiwanis Crab Feed.
You should charge us.
Charge you, but the nonprofit rate, because
Right.
the idea is that American Canyon nonprofit organization is raising funds to continue to do more within this community. So we don't want to take away from that. And we still want to support them for that. We know our fee is roughly, I'm rounding up, $64 per hour to support that. But the city's comfortable with that because there's a greater benefit and a value to what that organization is doing for the community as a whole. And so I think when we look at the nonprofit rates, in my opinion, if everybody can agree on it today, we can just completely be done with nonprofit rates. The market rate on your master fee schedule, we already have the market rate, and we've already set that. We've already taken that rate per hour rate, and we've stuck it at the lowest percentage, which is the 25%. And right now for the rec building, it's $24 per hour. And then for the adult activity center, it's 24. For the Meeting room, it's 22. For the Napa Junction, once we start getting that online, it would be 24 per hour. And then for a classroom, it would be $22.
Yeah, well, this body represents a lot of nonprofits.
It does.
And just for me,
Am I checking your boxes? Great.
absolutely. I would also maybe put that rate on for turf field rentals in the, maybe a nonprofit will have a future event that needs rental of a turf.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
I can add that, and then what we'll do is we'll just have the same setup, is that it will be put in its category at the lowest rate, and that will be the nonprofit rate. Okay, I can do that.
And just for clarification purposes, as costs increase for the city, then that cost for the nonprofit will go up to match that percentage.
Correct. So the idea is every year we're going to evaluate our fees, and when costs go up, like we know I'm just using round number, we know every year our staff get a cost of living increase, right? We also know that if they're here for a year of service, they get a step for their additional year of service. We're gonna want to consider that when we're looking at the costs for these programs and understand, okay, so if overall our staff costs have gone up 5%, we need to look at our fees in general, because we may need to do incremental fee increases. So that way, I've worked for an organization where we didn't do that. And when the first economic downturn that I sat through, we had to raise our fees 25%. That was really hard. And I don't think we want to be in that position. And so just recognizing that incremental fee increases over time is better than slamming the community with a 25% fee increase. But being mindful of that, understanding what your costs are. And I think we've done a lot of great work here to really understand how to cost out a program and then look at it each year and make that part of the budget process. Because once we adopt a master fee schedule, I assume that we would want to update it either on a yearly basis or on a 2-year basis, and we're not going to want to wait more than 2 years, because then you're looking at a 10% increase versus a 3% increase. So just maybe even on a yearly basis, we look at our fees and we make those incremental fee increases over time.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I think it's really important to have that annual review, just using the community garden as an example,
Yeah.
that it wasn't reviewed. And now we're very, very far behind on what that should be. And you're talking a lot in percentages. And so I'd just like to throw it out there that, because I do some fundraising things every now and then and deal with rental companies, and the industry standard typically out there, when you're renting, if you're a nonprofit, you just get a 20% discount off of the regular rate. So, I don't know what that price comparison looks like. 25% of cost recovery versus 20% off of the resident rate, if that is, if it's comparable or if there's a big gap. And what is easier moving forward. Say we don't have the opportunity to review annually 1 year and we do go 2 years, where are we staying more within the cost recovery area that we want to be?
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that? Because right now our nonprofit rates are set at the, okay. All right, to keep this meeting going so we're not here until midnight. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. The Adult Activity Center right now, it's at $50 per hour. Our staff cost is $63. We do have a threshold of going up to $150 if we really wanted to. Remember, this is one of our largest facilities. It does hold up to 100 people. It's a popular facility. I do recommend that we at least cover our staff costs, our direct costs. with this one.
So, rounding it up to 65?
Yes.
That's my proposal, so,
Would
unless
that,
anybody objects.
I have no objection. I'm just, maybe it becomes just a flat fee like we doing with the outdoor rentals. Since it's a larger space and usually you're not going to have a second rental come in after that 3 hour with that many people, right? So maybe it's just a
Well,
flat fee.
it allows the renter to customize too.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the hourly
So-
fee again, add on. Okay. I understand.
Correct. Yeah. So you may have a rental that only wants 3 hours versus somebody who wants 6. So having that hourly rate is helpful. Okay. I heard 65. Going once, going twice, moving on. The Adult Activity Center meeting room, this is a small room.
Right.
I would not recommend raising a fee for this space. It's not really it doesn't get rented out very much. It's an option as a meeting space, maybe for like a small meeting. But outside of that, it really doesn't serve in the same capacity as the other rentals.
Yeah, 32 works,
Great.
personally.
Once, twice, moving on. Okay, Napa Junction. This is going to be our new community center. I'm naming it the community center. Unofficially. It's better than former Napa Junction.
Right.
So this one is going to be our biggest room with 240 people. It won't have a commercial kitchen right away. Just keep that in mind because it doesn't have a commercial kitchen. And to do that, we would be opening a lot of can of worms. And we would be triggering new code enforcements. So it'll have a refrigerator, it'll have a prep space, it'll have a freezer. You'll just have to either cater in or prep offsite in a commercial kitchen, which you can easily do at the Adult Activity Center. There isn't a commercial kitchen there, but it just won't have a full kitchen. However, it can host large parties. And when you look at that capacity, just based off of being able to hold larger events, we do have an opportunity to charge anywhere between $82 all the way up to $169 per hour. And then this is not for nonprofits, this is for the regular general public.
I know for myself, it's hard to put a price to it without remembering what the space looks like. It's been years since I've been there.
This would have to be a re-envisioned space.
Right,
'cause-
right.
So is it fair to even put a price on it until the space has been redone?
No, I think it's fair because what we're going to do, we're going to add paint. It's in pretty good condition. We made some great efforts in cleaning it up, but we're going to go in and we're going to paint it. We're going to wax and clean the floors. It's going to look very nice. I don't think it's in poor condition anyways. So I think it would be a great, what I was going to propose to you this evening for that space, just so you kind of have a sense of where my brain was at, I was going to do $90 per hour.
I was actually thinking the same thing, because we want to set a baseline for rentals of this new, cool, shiny space that I think people are going to gravitate to.
Yes.
90's fair, in my opinion.
And it's almost at our market rate. Okay. Classroom, kind of same concept as the little room at the Adult Activity Center. I took that same concept, put it in the same bucket. It's a smaller space. They can hold a meeting in there, maybe a specialized class. But we're talking about a classroom that used to hold 30 students. So it's a decent space, but I wouldn't consider it a large space.
It's a clarification question. Okay. Well, I know that some of the nonprofits in the area are looking at some of these classrooms as long-term lease long-term lease areas.
That will be
Which would leave a certain number of classrooms per the city as rentable classrooms. I'm just curious about if, okay, you don't have to, maybe there isn't a number yet. Maybe that number hasn't been decided, but I'm wondering if you can give us an approximate of how many classrooms will be out at former Napa Junction will be rentable classrooms?
I don't know the answer to that, like to really comment on it. I know there's been conversation about the outside classrooms that are facing the parking lot because the accessibility into their rooms, and they don't have to go on campus because we are going to have a security system there. And there's been talk about not having those groups go on site without having keys and things like that. And we're just really trying to secure it. But as of right now, I know we've been just talking about the outside classrooms, which I believe is 4 classrooms. And a rental fee has not been set by that. That's going to be discussed with the city manager and city council for that. But that leaves quite a few classrooms for us to be able to rent out with staff on site. Like that, this type of rental would require a staff person to be on site. And that's where you're going to get that rate of about $57. But I don't think you're going to get that, is what I'm trying to say. Like, even though it's going to cost us that amount of money, I don't think we're going to get that. What I was recommending for this type of rental was $32 per hour, which is pretty fair with what's in line with the Adult Activity Center meeting space.
I think that's pretty good, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we're almost done. So we have a crazy concept and idea that we want to start charging a fee for our renters to use our projector and our audio. Right now, we found out that is typically a daily rate, and it ranges anywhere between 50 and up. And so this would allow a renter to be able to come in and use our projector or our sound system at the Adult Activity Center. It's not a whole lot, but over time it does add up, and it helps generate some type of revenue that if for some reason it needs maintenance or it breaks down, we need to purchase something new, we have some revenue to help offset that cost. So we are proposing a $50 flat rate for the projector and a $50 flat rate for the audio.
And quick question, if a renter destroys the projector or the audio system, are they required to have insurance, or would that be covered by the city's general liability?
No, that would actually come out of their damage deposit.
Ah, okay.
And if the damage exceeds their damage deposit, we will charge them directly how much it costs to replace whatever they broke.
Oh, okay, cool, good. Looks good to me.
I think those fees are fair.
Perfect. We talked about insurance. That's good.
One question about the insurance. I thought you said that the general liability plus liquor liability was $150. I see here it's $175. Can you just clarify?
Yeah, so that's the $150 for the direct certificate, and then there's the $25 fee for the staff time.
Okay,
to
so
generate the
$155,
certificate.
$175 total then?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Cleaning fee, we do charge a cleaning fee, and that is for our staff to go in and deep clean the facility after every rental. Right now, we're charging $100. Our cost is $142. So that's, again, this is for our indoor rentals.
And is the cleaning cost the same regardless of the size of the indoor rental?
Correct. Well, no, I take that back. No. If it's a smaller room, it takes less time. If it's a larger room, it's going to take more time. So
So should it be an hourly cleaning fee?
So right now we are, it is an hour for 2 staff to go in. That's what that rate is. We've dedicated an hour for 2 staff to go in and clean the facility. If it takes them less time, that's great. If it takes them more time, we don't charge more. That's why we wanted to go with that more of that flat rate. It really depends on the size, and if we really wanted to charge a specific cleaning fee per facility, we can do that. Says nothing that we can't, or we can just go with the flat rate across the board, and knowing that some facilities may take less and some facilities may take more, and eventually it just balances out.
I mean, I think that flat fees are nice because they are, they simplify things. However, if I am renting a classroom or a meeting room and my cleaning fee is the same as if I'm renting the Napa Junction Community Center, I'm going to be confused about that.
That's a great point.
And are these cleaning fees optional? Like, are these renters given, like, do you want to clean, or I'll just pay for the cleaning fee, or is it just?
They're not optional. So pretty much what happens is when a renter comes into the facility, staff set up and take down the facility. And what I mean by set up, they set up the tables and chairs, and they take down the tables and chairs. The renter is required to make sure that they don't leave anything behind. They put all of their trash in the appropriate trash receptacles. They're not trashing the facility. They're not leaving any major spills anywhere. And then what this cleaning fee covers is our staff to be able to come in and clean that facility, like deep clean. They clean the kitchen, or they're mopping and sweeping the floors, or cleaning the bathrooms, because there's bathrooms at most of our facilities that they use. So they're pretty much cleaning the facility for the next day programming or for the next rental.
And the 182 would be applied to every facility. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
I agree with Chair Griggs on the classroom sizes. Maybe I would recommend that you do a 50% reduction in cleaning fees for any space that occupies 35 or less people. Because then that would just cover the 35 and the 20.
Yeah.
And we could still show it as 100 with a reduction based on the size.
So we're currently charging right now 100, but our actual cost, if we were look at a larger facility, is 142. So I'd at least make sure that we're covering our direct costs at maybe 143.
I would propose a $100 cleaning fee for the meeting rooms and the classrooms, and $200 for the community center and the adult activity center. And also, I think that it is important as we move forward with renting the Napa Junction Community Center. I think it's important that those rental terms be similar to what the rental terms were for the middle school gym, because the middle school gym rental did not include any setup of tables or chairs. It did not include any cleaning prior to the event. It did not include any cleaning after the event, and it did not include maintaining or even restocking the bathrooms with anything during the event. It included the staff sitting in the office, letting you in, and kicking you out.
We've made a lot of changes since then. I feel like this has been the year of change. And I can tell you that since we've brought our facility rentals back online, we actually have outlined facility rules and regulations for our rentals, both indoor and outdoor. And that clearly defined the rental relationship with the renter and the expectations that we have with our renter, with our facilities. Our staff go in and set up the facility, the tables and chairs. We actually get a layout from the renter. They tell us how they want their tables and chairs. We go and we set it up for them. We open the building. The staff's on site throughout the entire rental. They're checking on them. And then they're there at the end doing a final walkthrough with the rental as well to make sure that we're documenting any damage or anything that happened during that rental that needs to either be withheld from the refundable deposit, or if there's additional staff time that's allocated, because we actually have an additional staff time fee associated with that built in. If the cleaning is beyond what is stated here, we will charge that renter and we will withhold it from their damage deposit. And our staff do clean the facility after each rental now. We've had about 15 rentals and they're going really, really well, and the staff have really adapted to the new process. And I think this is the year of being present and providing high quality services and recognizing that our staff, this is a job, and our community members are paying for a service. and the expectation of that service needs to be met. So I will tell you that with how we were operating before, I agree with you. We're no longer doing that. We have transitioned to a new world where our facility rentals are more of a business operation and more polished, and it is clearly defined the relationship between the city and the renter.
That is all wonderful information. That pleases me greatly. And I have a follow-up question. Is the Napa Junction Community Center rental going to include tables and chairs? Are they actual tables and chairs? Are they rounds? Are they rectangles? Are you using the cafeteria tables that were in existence?
So thank you. We have not purchased the table. We do have the chairs. They're the old chairs from the gymnasium. So we brought those over from the gym. They were ours. The city purchased them. For tables, we were looking at rounds. Just because of that facility, it's unique. You can actually fit up to 10 people per table. 8 if you want to sit comfortably. But that was our plan, is to purchase round tables for that facility, and your rental does include tables and chairs, and it does include the staff coming in and setting those tables and chairs up per the layout that you give us and taking them down per the as part of the cleanup process.
And how many tables of max 10 people can it accommodate?
So we're gonna be have to fit with the max capacity, which is 240 people. So I can't remember how many tables that equates to, but we were gonna go with a lower number of 8 per table, so that we can have extra tables. And then we were gonna purchase some rectangle tables if people wanted to do more of a buffet style, to put on the back end of the back room. And I think we're gonna have about 6 of those, 6-foot tables. But in regards to the rounds, I can't remember how many we were going to purchase, but it was quite a few. It was in the upwards of like 25 almost, I believe, something like that.
So just a little bit of input then. Rectangular tables fit in a rectangular space better than circular tables do. And the more tables you put out and the more chairs you put out, the more work for your staff. And in the reverse as well, I would take a look at that rental fee, and I would either charge per table rental and per chair like rental companies do, or I would increase the flat rate, because to include tables and chairs is a big deal. And sometimes there is damage. And you want to recoup that. Rental companies out there, if you call Bright, if you call, any of the other linen tables, chairs, tents, rental companies, it's expensive.
No, I agree. And I just want to be mindful of what we're charging, because we're also competing with other event spaces that have more amenities than what we have. So we do need to be mindful of that. And I don't want to get to a point where we're outpricing ourselves and we're losing business because of that. Most facilities that I have, or most rec departments that I've worked at, the facility rentals do include tables and chairs because they're community centers. They're not like wine country, beautiful estates, or, a hotel that has additional amenities that we just aren't able to provide. And it's like being in that sandbox, right? So we're in this large sandbox and having different options that fit our different needs of the community. You have your estate, beautiful wine venues that cost hundreds and thousands of dollars. You have your hotels that cost X amount of dollars, and then you have your community centers, which tend to be a little bit more affordable, and they don't come with all the bells and whistles, but they do come with the tables and chairs, and you have a free space. You can come in, you can decorate it, you can make it your own. But I think just being mindful of really what the reality is of what we're offering and who our competitors are, we just want to probably take that into consideration. I think the $90 per hour with a minimum of 3 hours for that space, including the tables and chairs, is fair. And it's pretty fair with what's going on in the industry for community centers as well. Most of those rentals do include tables and chairs. I hear you, I agree, but
So, I'm going to put my nonprofit Kiwanis Club hat on for a second. I'm very familiar right now with the budget of what it takes to rent a facility for our crab feed, table rental, security, all of that stuff, and comparing that number to the numbers on the master fee schedule, it's a bargain. Our city provides a bargain still. So,
it does. And remember, we
Sense.
don't want to, we have to, again, take that same approach of incremental fee increases, right? Like, we're taking the rec center and we're going from $27 to $40. The community's used to $27. And then if we start adding the insurance fee, the cleaning fee, and now we're going to have a table and chair fee, it starts adding up. And you're going to start looking like all these other nicer venues, and those nicer venues may look more affordable because our fees are not as less affordable within their price. But I think it's a balance. I think we're not going to be able to solve all of our problems in this one evening. Right. We're having incremental steps and approach to making our department more physically aware of what it costs to do business with our community. Are we going to get to 100% of where we want to be tonight? No, we're not. But we are making incremental steps to get there. We can absolutely reevaluate this next year and say, yeah, we need to charge for tables and chairs. We need to increase our fees X amount of percentage. That's an opportunity. Just doing this evening and having a master fee schedule and even raising the fees of what they have been for the last several years to making this change is going to be an adjustment for this community. It's not going to be easy for the staff to be able to communicate that, for you as commissioners to be able to communicate that. We're going to have to come up with strategy on getting that message out and making it positive and showing that your money is being well spent and well used in areas that are providing good quality programs and services. I would just caution that not doing it all in one night and just having that incremental approach.
I have a quick clarification question. And again, I'm glad we're talking about this because I agree, I've done a lot of events and this is an incredible bargain. But to clarify, the tables and chairs are naked, there's no linen, correct?
Correct.
So you have to get your own linen. So there's a point, they still have to decorate it. And then the other thing I was going to ask is, I know we've got other cities on here, but for rental space, I think for this next year, we should also evaluate Eagle Vines and some of the in-city competitions that we have, because I know a lot of rental space being done at Eagle Vines for parties and events as well too. So at least get a comparable fee schedule as far as what they're charging, and I know they include linens, but just to give us a range of what's happening just within our own city versus city-owned and non-city-owned
Yeah, agreed.
activations.
actually, it's kind of a good idea to think about the non-city rental areas. Eagle Vines is definitely one. The Boys and Girls Club is another. Any others?
Hotel right across the street.
Oh, Doubletree.
Yeah, Doubletree.
Doubletree. Mm-hmm.
They're gonna be higher than probably most of them, but I think Eagle
Right.
Line's, a lot of people, I know for a fact, a lot of our community stuff is done at Eagle Lines.
Right, right.
So, if we're gonna compete as a city, I should have mic on, sorry. If we say we wanna be able to compete, and not compete at such a big level, but at least compete for space and share of mind, then I think that comparable study should be looked at outside of, just government,
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah. So when I used to work for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, we had a ton of facilities for rent, and we would always compare ourselves to Ruby Hill and the golf courses and all the winery estates that surrounded us. And it's a good idea to have that market as well and just really understand, because again, you may not be able to have the same amenities, but you're offering a comparable space. Somebody can come in and completely transform our space into something magical and beautiful if they have the eye for it or if they have the budget for it. So yeah, I think that's a great approach.
Yeah, and just one last thing to add, and I know we want to move on, but at $90, to your point.
Can you talk into your mic
Oh,
for me,
sorry.
please? Thank you.
At $90, again, with a naked space, And then the cleaning fees, for someone to come in and cater it and have to bring in the linens and decorate it, it really is a blank canvas when you think about it, right? It can be a unique space. And I think maybe the city should think about, or we should think about how to promote that as a blank canvas that someone can go in and create it. And that's why the cost or the fee is just slightly lower than maybe a private enterprise location.
Right, agreed. Okay, so we are done setting the resident rate. Do we want to consider a non-resident rate, because we do have non-resident participants, and have that be a certain percentage above the resident rate or below the market rate? What are your thoughts?
Well, Director Akita, you're, in the notes, the suggestion was program, well, yeah, I see it in your notes, $10 more than the resident rates, rentals $10 or 10% more. I mean, that seems pretty good to me. Of course, it's 9:45 and.
I'd almost advocate for it to be higher.
It needs to be.
And I say that only because, not that we don't want to have outside non-resident people rent space, and we do, but we want to make sure our residents have an opportunity to do that. And if it's only a dollar amount, I think that's one thing, but I think a percentage amount based on our resident rate is a much better approach to saying, this is the rate, here's your benefit of being a resident, but that rate becomes the non-resident rate, if we want to call it that way. That's only my recommendation, because I see that in the commercial world, and it's very effective for people to process that.
I agree 100% that it should be a percentage. I like the percentages, if you hadn't noticed.
I do. But can we, if we can all agree that the drop-in programs, with the 25%, let's just say on $7, is going to be significantly more than what we're going to be out marketing ourselves. So keeping that with the drop-in programs, $1 more than the resident rate. Okay. So what percentage do you want to have above the resident rate for non-residents? 10%, 15, 20, 25?
I like 15.
Okay.
I agree. I think 15 is a good number. It shows value for our residents. And then to Commissioner Garcia Ariola's point, maybe there's an additional 5 or 8% discount for seniors and military, as we look at that column.
And those are for those individuals participating in those programs, correct? Okay. Did you say 5%? Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
I said 5%, but
Okay.
I would leave it open for everybody to agree or disagree with that.
I
And
agree
how
with
would
5%.
what would be considered a senior? What age? Military, what is
The
documentation?
The AARP age.
Which is,
55. AARP is 55?
our senior programs are 55 and older, which would be considered. But with our senior programs already being at a discounted rate, it may not make sense to do a senior rate because we're already discounting the seniors at a significant, our drop-in right now is $1. And our programs we're really not charging anything for our programs. So I would almost argue.
Well, I think the senior rate would be on the non-senior stuff, such
Correct.
as
Okay.
private swim lessons or such as things like
Okay.
that. I think that's where the senior rate would be. It's not applicable across the board. It's applicable where there's a non-specific
Okay.
senior program, I guess it would be.
No double dipping.
Yeah, no double dipping.
No double dipping.
And I would say 60 would be I mean,
Sure.
I would advocate for ARP, but that wouldn't be fair.
So it's 60?
That would be my recommendation, but I don't know.
What is our,
55.
yeah, I think we need to stay consistent with that,
Yeah, I think
with
55
whatever our
would be okay.
senior, yeah.
And then military, what is going to be the military documentation?
They have to show military ID.
Well, okay, so I'm Googling what is considered proof of military service, because I didn't know. And it says a DD Form 214 proves military service. But maybe that's too high of a standard. I mean,
Well, we already have our resident rate, so if they're,
Yeah.
if they truly are residents, they're already getting the resident rate
True.
as well. And,
Well, maybe, I
it's,
don't know.
again, we have to look at the administrative burden as well. I
Correct, right.
have to be honest and transparent about that, because with all of these discounts require some sort of tracking from admin, which is gonna increase our time and our cost. And that's why I'm recommending the resident rate and non-resident rate and nonprofit rate. I feel even with the fees that we've had, that we've identified this evening, we're still not even at the full potential of what we should be charging. And this could be something that we can table for future discussion. Unless we have a way to really enforce it. Because saying that we want to do it, we have to have a process. Like, we have a process with our scholarship program, we have a process with a lot of the things that we do, and we want to just be mindful of the staff time that's going to be involved in that too.
So the difficulty is more on the military side versus a senior, because you have a photo ID and birth
And birth-
thing like
Yeah.
that. So that's really not the issue. The issue is the more on the military side, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone who's serving active duty or in the reserves has a military ID.
Correct.
It's just an ID. It's not any special forms.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even local stores like Lowe's, Home Depot have military ID, and it's feasible. You can just pull out your wallet, and it's like your driver's license for them. So I think a military ID would suffice.
Okay, I will look into that.
Mm.
Perfect. Any other comments before we move on?
Well, and if we're going to suggest the military fee, again, it wouldn't be a unilateral across every single program. I think it would be on programs that make the most sense for either individuals or families, not on rental spaces per se, or not on turf rentals and things like that, but on individual or family programs. I think that's where the benefit's at, and I think that's where we have to take that consideration, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
to
I agree.
commissioners.
Otherwise, one of your guests, you tell them to go get the
Correct.
rental, and then you
Correct.
get another 5% off.
Yeah.
Right.
And we do want to be mindful of staff time and that extra administrative efforts, yeah.
Perfect. Okay,
Is that the end of your presentation, Director Akita?
that is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will let you rest your voice.
Oh,
And moving on to management and staff reports then.
rest is over. All right, I promise
You're
I'll
up
make
again.
this. I will make this quick. Okay, so just a couple updates. Playground replacement project. We're moving forward with that. The equipment has been ordered. We're expected to receive it in May or June. Each playground takes about 2 weeks to build from start to finish. And so we're moving right along for Northampton Park, Via Bellagio Park, and Linwood Park. Northampton may take a little bit longer because of the intricacy of us having to expand and go beyond the footprint. So that one is kind of up in the air still in regards to timeline. It just may take a little bit longer than 2 weeks. Skate Park, on Tuesday night, City Council approved an increased budget to $630,000 to recreate an enhanced skateboard park over here in Veterans Park. We're super excited about that. We think it's going to be a great addition, and it's going to be open from sunrise to sunset. No fences. People can go out there and just enjoy their time. Napa Junction, also on Tuesday, City Council approved us to create a new capital improvement project to bring Napa Junction to life, so we can use it not only for staff, but we can use it for programming for this coming summer. Our goal is to have that facility up and running for summer camp and for rentals by May. I'm attending the Citizens Academy tomorrow at the high school. We'll be talking about all the wonderful things that we do in our department, and hopefully getting some recruitment for some new summer staff. So I'll be there all day tomorrow, being a high schooler again, and visiting the high school for the first time because I've never been there, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, so I can't wait.
Director Akita, if I may, is that an opportunity for you to also talk about our honorary commissioner position?
I don't have that on the agenda, but I can see if I can try to add it because I already submitted the presentation, but I'll see if I can add it and drop a little plug into there.
Very good.
On 225, we have a volunteer opportunity at the wetlands. We're looking for volunteers to come down and participate and help beautify that area. And then some exciting news, summer registration is moving forward. We're looking at that starting the week of April 17th and going to the 23rd for residents. We're calling it Rec Expo Week, just to add a little pizzazz to it. Non-resident registration is going to occur on that following Monday, which I believe is the 24th. And then something new and exciting, not new, but something that we're super excited about, we're bringing back a printed activity guide this summer. It's going to be mailed to everyone's households. We're working on that right now. We're really excited about it. And you should expect to see that in the mail as of April 1st. And that is it for me.
One
you.
question, not that I want things to go longer, but what's the time frame for the skate park moving?
That's a good question. So now that we have gotten approval to move forward with it, we got to sign that contract. The earliest we can get on their calendar is going to be late July, early August. And that's with them bumping us in. A lot of their projects are scheduled out to 2024, and they're making a special accommodation for us because we've worked with them in the past on several projects.
Thank you, Director. Okay, moving on to Commissioner reports. We have a Parks and Community Services Commissioner report submitted by Commissioner Margolotti.
And there they are. There's nothing additional to say. They're in the report.
In the report, okay. And one submitted by Commissioner Mammarell as well.
Oh, there they are. But I do have one additional thing. So I politely ask my colleagues to read the reports. My addition is to the report about the California Parks and Recreation Community, commissioners and board members. So, and this is more for the benefit of our new commissioners. So we are part of an organization of other parks commissioners in the state of California. And yeah, we have colleagues from Santa Monica and Mammoth Lakes and Folsom. I would would love it if you came over, outside of the meeting, not two of you together though, just individually, Brown Act, to talk about the benefits of our membership in the California Parks and Recreation Association, yeah, including training and an opening on the board of directors if someone here from American Canyon would like to join the board of directors. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Mammarell. Any other commissioner comments before we adjourn? No? Are you sure? It's not quite 10 o'clock. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, at 9:59, we are adjourned.
Woohoo! Yeah. Good job, you guys.
Nothing got out before 10:30.
No, there was nothing. Yeah, yeah.
I am not even kidding.
That
We
is
didn't get this much work done.
that is not.